I would like to call the City Council meeting of July the 19th, 2022 to order. Kara, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg.
Here.
Harvey.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Kenyon.
Here.
Whitaker.
Here.
Scroggin.
Present.
Bunch.
Here.
Turk.
Here.
Mayor Jordan.
Here. Would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Good evening, everyone. The first order of business we have under announcements is announcement of the completion of the audited 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report by Paul Becker. Paul?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to report that we have completed and published the 2021 Annual Financial Statements of the City. In that report, you'll see it was audited by BKD. We received an unqualified opinion. Also, we had a single audit done. A single audit talks about grant compliance with the federal government. And we had no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in regard to internal control. We also have complied with all the state statutes in regard to state grants that we got last year in 2021. I could go on half the night talking about the results, but I would refer everybody to the website. It's posted on the website, the comprehensive annual report. And I would refer people who would like to look at it to the MD&A, that's the management report on pages 13 to 25, and that gives you what we call the management discussion and analysis. It would give us the high points, and anybody with questions could email me, etc., and I will be happy to answer any, but I'm required by statute to let you know that the report has been completed and it is in fact on file. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any comments or questions from the council? Okay, thank you, Paul. All right, the next order of business is the consent agenda. Number one, approval of the July 5th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Number two, a resolution to approve the purchase of equipment and furnishings for the new police headquarters building from Wilson Bahanas Interiors and other dealers is authorized by Resolution 97-21 in the amount of $965,009.91 plus any applicable taxes and shipping charges to approve a budget adjustment. Number three, a resolution to approve an agreement with On Point Dumpster Rental NWA LLC for the hauling and disposal of solid waste in the city of Fayetteville. Number four, a resolution to approve an agreement with SPO Networks Incorporated for the hauling and disposal of solid waste in the city of Fayetteville. Number five, a resolution to award bid number 22-34 and to authorize a contract with Sweetser Construction Incorporated in the amount of $362,283 for construction of the Wilson Park Trail Bridge replacement and promenade improvements, to approve a project contingency in the amount of $25,000 and to approve budget adjustment. Number six, a resolution to approve a budget adjustment in the total amount of $75,513,868 to appropriate proceeds from the 2022 sales tax and use tax bonds. Number seven, a resolution to authorize the purchase of playground safety servicing from Landscape Structures Incorporated for installation at the David Lashley and Hotz Parks in the amount of $101,039 and 75 cents pursuant to a Sourcewell cooperative purchasing contract and to approve project contingency in the amount of $10,000. And number 8, a resolution to approve a 3-year lease agreement with the Arkansas Air and Military Museum Incorporated for property located at Drake Field with options to renew for additional 3-year terms. I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as read. Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Now I will open up a public hearing, and it will be on a resolution to conduct a public hearing on the proposed ordinance to change or establish water and sewer rates. So we will hear from the public. We want to hear from everyone tonight, and we will be here till we hear from everyone. So, Paul, would you like to?
I would like to introduce Anna White. She headed up the study for Black and Veatch, who is our professional group that did this study, and she's going to give us a quick presentation. Hopefully, that will clarify how the study is done at this point in time. With that, Anna, would you like to present your?
Okay, you have 10 minutes.
All right, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here tonight presenting to you, and I will do my best to keep it within the 10 minutes. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Okay, so when we do a cost of service rate study, there's 3 steps that we're following. Step 1 is the revenue requirement. So that's when we're determining how much revenue we need to generate from the rates in order to fund the operating and the capital costs for each of the utilities for water and sewer. The second step is the cost of service. This is where we're allocating those costs to your customer classes in order to determine how much revenue we need to recover from each customer class. The third step then is rate design. So once we know how much revenue we need to recover from each customer class, we design the rate schedule and the rate structure in order to recover it appropriately. So tonight I'm going to focus on step 2, cost of service. Next slide. So there's 2 manuals that provide the guidelines for doing a cost of service rate study for water and sewer. For the wastewater utility, it's the Water Environment Federation's manual that's shown there on the slide. The second one is for the water utility. It's called the M1 manual. This is the one that really lays out all of the detail and how you do the cost of service analysis that I'm going to talk about. Next slide. So what's so important about cost of service, and why do we stress that, and why are we doing a cost of service rate study? The reason is because different customer classes within within the community, inside and outside the city, use the systems, the water and wastewater systems, in different ways. And so the cost of service step is how we recognize that there's differences in the different customer classes that you serve. So for example, customers that are located inside the city for water service use all of the components of the water system, the distribution mains, the transmission mains, the pumping stations, the plant, all of those where you purchase water from. Customers that are located outside the city don't necessarily use those same assets. For instance, the small mains, the distribution mains within the water system, they don't provide any service to customers outside of the city. So we don't allocate the costs associated with distribution mains to customers outside the city. So the way that we make that recognition that there's differences is through this cost of service analysis. The other difference that we draw our attention to in this step is your rate structure and what costs are recovered in each of the 2 components. So you have a minimum charge and you have a volume charge. Costs associated with meter reading, billing, collection, customer service, those are recovered through the minimum charge. Costs associated with how much water is being treated or pumped, that's recovered through the volume charge. So again, we do that cost of service analysis in order to break out those costs to know what costs need to be recovered through what fee. Next slide. So the current context for Fayetteville with regards to revenue requirements, For the last 11 years, across-the-board increases have been used in order to increase the revenue, in order to fund the revenue requirements. Cost of service, the last cost of service study was done 14 years ago. Rate design, because of the across-the-board increases and because of how long it's been since the last rate study was completed, cost of service was completed, your existing rates do not reflect cost of service. We can click on the text box. So because of the passage in time, what's happened over those 14 years? Customer characteristics have changed. There's been new customers to the system. Different customer classes have grown at different rates. Water usage, wastewater consumption, the usage per customer has changed over time, and especially with COVID. There's a lot of changes in your customer patterns just due to COVID. The cost allocations have changed. So if we look at your operating costs, maybe the costs associated with the distribution mains went up more than the costs associated with your transmission mains. That makes a difference, again, because customer classes use different parts of the system. Your capital costs have changed. You're investing in different parts of the system now than you did 14 years ago. And so again, your existing rates do not align with cost of service. Okay, next slide. So how do we do the analysis? All right, so what we're going to focus tonight on is what's called the return on investment. This is a key component for the cost of service analysis. So the M1 manual that I mentioned specifies that if a utility provides service to customers outside of the city limits, outside of the city boundary, it is entitled to earn a return on those services provided outside of the city, because those customers outside the city are not considered owners of the utility. The city and the inside city customers are the owners and are entitled to earn a rate of return on that investment that's been made in the system to serve customers outside the city. So why is that? There's three reasons. So first off, the city and the inside city customers have an ownership risk. The city is ultimately responsible for paying all of the costs associated with the system, operating capital, making sure that regulatory compliance requirements are being met, and they own the risk if there's any liabilities or penalties. The second one is financial risk. So the city has to invest in those assets outside the city to serve customers outside the city. But if those customers suddenly decide that they're going to go buy water from somewhere else, or they're going to build their own treatment plant, then there's just stranded investment out there that the city invested in, put into place, and it's now not generating any revenue. The third is the opportunity risk. So those funds that have been committed for those investments pose a capital and an opportunity cost for the city. The city could have invested those funds somewhere else, but they chose to invest them to build those investments outside the city to serve those customers. Okay, next slide. So the steps that we use in order to calculate this return on investment. The first one is the rate of return. This is the percentage rate of return. The M1 manual specifically lays out the methodology that we use to calculate the rate of return, and it's using the weighted average cost of capital. And I'm going to walk through that in more detail. So once we know what that percentage rate of return is, then we need to determine the dollar amount of return. I'll walk you through that. And then the third step, once we know what that total dollar amount of rate of return is, it's allocated between the customers inside the city and outside the city. And so we'll walk through that. So next slide. Okay, so determining the rate of return. So this is the methodology that's laid out in the manual. It's the weighted average cost of capital. And what we're taking into account there is the total original cost less depreciation value of all of the assets that are currently in service in order to provide both water service and wastewater service to all of your customers. So the value of those assets, we look at how much of that, how much outstanding debt there is associated with those assets. And then the remainder then, of course, is the equity portion of those assets. So the utility does not have any outstanding debt associated with water or wastewater. So the value of those assets is 100% equity. So when we do our weighted average cost of capital, what we're taking is the portion that's equity and the debt portion, multiplying both of those by the interest rate on the debt, or what we would call a fair rate of return on the equity portion, and that gives us what our initial rate of return would be for customers outside the city. So basically, we're just taking into account how much the city has invested in those assets, where that investment is taking place, whether it's through equity or for debt, and calculating what that average cost of capital is. We then add a premium to that amount. So the premium is what recognizes that there is a risk associated with providing service to these customers. What that premium number is can vary. The M1 manual does not give any guideline for what that number is. It can be dictated in a contract like it is here. It can be a number that is just what the city feels is a reasonable rate of return to earn from their customers, knowing their customers and what relationship they have with them. That's a number that's an assumption or something that needs to be input. And again, here it's dictated by the contracts that the city has with the wholesale customers. So the calculation that I have up here just shows you how we do that math. I do have an example there for water and wastewater, just so you can see, and those are the actual numbers from the study, so you can see how that math is being calculated. So once we know what that percentage rate of return is, and you can see there for water, and what I'm showing here, for water it's 7%, for wastewater it's 5.5%, okay? So we know now what that percentage rate of return is for the outside city customer. So the next step then, the next slide, is to go to the dollars. So the way that the dollar rate of return is calculated, or the return on investment is calculated, we know when we look at the costs for each of the systems, we have operating costs and we have capital costs. The operating costs are the operating costs, they are what they are. What we're talking about here is the capital piece. So we take the total cost related to capital, it's debt services, if there's debt service, which there isn't here. So here it's the amount of the annual cash investment that the utility is making into the assets. So basically from rate revenue, each of the utilities.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your time is up, so.
Mayor, I'd like to
possibly give her,
Then you can make a motion, council, if you want to.
make a motion to give her, how many more, 10
10?
more
Could I have
minutes?
10?
Do you think that's, or,
I'm about halfway through.
It's up to you all.
10 sounds good.
okay, I'll do 10.
Okay,
Okay.
you have 10 more
All right.
minutes.
All right, thank you. So we're talking about the capital portion here. So when we talk about the capital portion, what we're referring there is the annual amount that each utility is investing back into the infrastructure or the assets. So the way then that we calculate the dollar amount of return, it's that total, what we look at it's the total amount of capital investment less depreciation, and what's remaining is the return. So that's a very simple calculation. That's how it's laid out in the M1 manual. So that's just how we get that dollar amount of return. The next step then is we need to allocate that return to the inside-outside customers. I'm going to show you a couple examples though here real quick, if we can go to the next slide. Just to show you the math on what I just walked you through so you can better understand it. So this is for the water utility, and these are the numbers from the rate study. So what's shown on the left there, if we were looking at the cash flow, the costs that we have the operation and maintenance costs, about $18 million. Debt principal, if there was any, there is not, so that's zero. Cash financing of CIP, so the water utility is estimated to invest about $4 million from rate revenue back into the water system. And then there's no debt interest. So the total costs are about $22 million. When we move to what's called the utility basis to recognize that there's customers outside the city, all we're doing is just restating those costs a little bit differently. So the O&M cost is still O&M, it's still about 18 million, but we take that 4.3 million of investment back into the system and we divide it into depreciation and return. Depreciation is a known number. That's the annual depreciation on the water assets. So the difference between the two, the 1.5 million, is return. So again, it's just a calculation to come up with that dollar return. If we go to the next slide, you can see the same information for the wastewater utility. I think the main thing to point out here is how much lower the dollar amount of return is for wastewater than it is for water. So for water, it's about 1.5 million. For wastewater, it's 130,000. So much, much smaller. And basically what that's indicating is that the cash investment that's going back into the wastewater system is pretty much equal to depreciation. Whereas on the water side, that cash investment was greater than depreciation. Okay, next slide. Okay, the next step then is to allocate that dollar value back to inside versus outside city customers. So again, the steps that we go through here, so once we know the value of the assets, this is the original cost less depreciation value of the assets, we divide that by the units. That's how we come up with the unit cost that goes into developing the rate schedule. For the unit cost associated with plant investment, for inside city and outside city, we multiply that by the rate of return for each of the inside and outside customers. And that's how we get the dollar amount for inside versus outside. And so when you look at the detailed tables, if you looked at them in the report, you'll notice that we had return broken out between inside and outside. It was much more heavily allocated to outside city customers. That's because the rate of return for outside city customers is greater than inside city to, again, represent that risk associated with providing those services. All right, next slide. So then this just shows a little bit more detail here for water. Again, we have O&M, we have depreciation, and we have return, and how we've taken that return component and we've now allocated it between inside and outside city customers. So if you add up now all of the components showing on here, it's still equal to what we originally saw, the operating and the capital costs for water. We're just slowly breaking it down into these pieces that we need in order to develop the rates. And then the next slide is the same information for wastewater. So again, we're breaking that return down between inside and outside city. As you can see here, the inside city rate of return, or return dollar value, is actually a negative. And that, again, that's because we only had $130,000 of return for the wastewater utility. We are entitled to earn a return on the outside city customers because it comes out to be greater than the total return. It's a negative return for inside city. I know that's kind of hard to understand. It really is just how the math works, but that's also just to recognize that there is a risk associated with the outside city customers, and the inside city customers does not have to pay that risk. Okay, and the last slide here on this topic. So just to summarize, when we talk about return on investment, the purpose of that is intended to provide a reasonable return for the equity capital that's used in order to finance those investments, the infrastructure, to provide water and sewer service to your customers and to all of your customers. The weighted average cost of capital is the generally accepted method outlined in the M1 manual, and it serves as a guideline. That's what's important here. It's a guideline for determining that outside city rate of return. What can impact that decision on what that outside city rate of return is? City policies, existing contracts that we've recognized, impacts on customers. When I made my presentation to you a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that I talked about were some of the things that we take into consideration when we go into rate design. Impact on the customers, the rate structure, is it easy to understand? Does it send the right message? All of that applies here as well when we're talking about the rate of return, what it is, and how it's applied to the customers. What's outlined in the M1 manual are guidelines that we can follow to get us to a starting point for what those numbers are. They can always be adjusted. Okay, those are just guidelines. Okay. So then I just want to conclude with the two rate structure tables. These have not changed from the report that we issued or what I showed you when I presented to you a couple of weeks ago. If you want to go ahead and advance, right? These are the proposed rate schedules. This is for water. The next slide is for wastewater. These are based on the cost of service analysis that I just walked through. Again, we were hired to perform the cost of service analysis, and that's what we did following the methodology in the M1 manual. The results of that calculation is what's represented here in the rates. There's always adjustments that can be made.
Okay. Does council have any questions before we take public comment?
Here, I have one question. So the rate study that was done 14 years ago, was the same methodology used that you use in this rate study?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Anybody else? Okay. All right. what you've all been waiting for. We will take some public comment now. There's some rules. Everybody has one turn to speak. You have 5 minutes. Don't engage anyone from the public or any council member. Stay on topic, which I don't think we'll have any trouble with that. Please give us your name and address. Those participating by Zoom are allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will speak after that. Susan, who do we have on Zoom?
No one on Zoom has their hand raised, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Heath Cottle. I'm the mayor of West Fork. Appreciate you guys making time for me to come back up and speak with you again. I've emailed all of you. I think my council members have emailed most of you. A couple of things I want to point out. Black and Beach, I'm glad we gave them the extra 10 minutes. She pointed out at the end of that is a recommendation, that those are guidelines for designing rate analysis. I want to point out that, so we ran the rate analysis for how this is going to impact the city of West Fork versus how it's going to impact the city of Fayetteville. And I understand that we're a wholesale customer, and I'm only asking to be treated as such, as a wholesale customer. But given the current status of the rates, the base rate for a Fayetteville resident, water and sewer combined, is $39.87. That's based on 2,000 gallons of usage. Currently, for a resident of my city of West Fork, our base rate is $63.49. Now that's because we built our own infrastructure. We took out $10 million worth of bonds to get tied into Fayetteville, and we're gracious that you guys took us. Don't get me wrong there. I'm pointing that out to say that we are a wholesale customer. We have our own cost, our own repairs, maintenance, infrastructure that we pay for ourselves. The city of Fayetteville doesn't pay for that. Now, under the proposed rate increase, a Fayetteville citizen's rate is going to go down to $38.25 a month. That's the base rate on 2,000 gallons. A West Fork resident is going to go up to $93.97 a month. That's before they turn on the faucet, before they run the dishwasher, any of that. Okay, that's our base rate, $93.97. My residents can't absorb that. Our city can't absorb that. In the Black and Beach study, they point out that between your two wholesale customers, West Fork and Elkins, you need $933,000 a year in revenue. We're currently providing more than 900. Last year, between the two of us, we provided $965,000 in revenue. Okay, that's before any rate increases. We've already met the revenue needs that are laid out in the report. Just last month, we paid the city of Fayetteville $101,000 for the treatment of our sewer. That's in 1 month. Now, we billed about $55,000. That's what we billed our customers, $55,000. We turned around and we wrote a check for $101,000. You see where this is going. I told you the last time I was here, we will default, the city of West Fork will default somewhere, whether it be at the state level or at the city level. We physically cannot bear the burden of these rates. Now, I pointed out last time that we represent not quite 3% of total volume wastewater. And Mayor, you weren't here. With the water rates, I'm not here to debate that. A 10% increase after 14 years, sir. We haven't raised ours either. So no bones with water. Sewer is where I'm at. We're proposing a 38% increase on our sewer bills. So Black and Beach pointed out that these cost analysis, they dive into the different cost centers, but ultimately we're talking about operations and maintenance budget. It's made up of several different cost centers. I kind of highlighted some of the major ones: maintenance, repairs, expansion, wages, administration, and treatment. The city of West Fork is really only asking for one of those cost centers: treatment. Okay, that's the only thing. Now, we are hitting some of your mains to get our effluent to the treatment facility. I make no bones about that. And there's overhead cost. But essentially, the real cost to the city of Fayetteville in treating our sewage is the treatment cost. We don't have any idea what it costs to treat 1,000 gallons of sewage, but the city of West Fork is being charged $7.09 under the proposed rates. The city of Fayetteville is being charged $4.68 under the proposed rates per 1,000 gallons. Now, We're a wholesale customer. As I started out saying last time, we get a 32% discount on our water rates over your customers because it's passed through. I'm asking for a discount on our sewer. I'm asking for a wholesale discount. We are not causing cost to the city of Fayetteville system. We're not like, and I'm not picking on Mayor Penn back there, but we're not Farmington. You guys aren't doing our billing. You're not doing our repairs, maintenance, expansion, that type of thing. You're simply treating our effluent. And agreed, we are touching those transmission lines to get it there, but it's at less than 3% volume, total volume.
Mayor Cottle, time.
I'm sorry. Thank you. And
Thank
if
you.
anyone would like to look at that,
Sure,
I can make that available.
absolutely.
Yeah. I'll do
Sure.
it.
Okay. Who else would like to address us? Thank you, Mayor Cottle.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Jordan. My name is Ernie Penn. I'm the mayor at the city of Farmington. And so Heath is exactly correct. Our situation is different than the wholesale customers. So hopefully you received my memo that I sent to all the council members and Mayor Jordan. And so I'm not going to rehash what I've got in here because you can read what's in here. But, you know, the thing we talk about risk, and I know Black and Veatch does the study and they use certain formats and methodology that they have to do to come up with those rates. Totally understand that. But there's also other factors we have to take in consideration. Number one, the risk factor. We've been joined at the hip for 40 plus years. The city of Farmington has no other options. We can't go build a sewer plant. We can't go get our water from any other place. So we're together, we're partners. And we've had a great partnership and a great relationship all those 40 plus years. We've had a few blips here and there, but we worked through it and everything's worked out fine. But one of the things that I want to emphasize is the percentage of usage. And so Farmington is just a minority percentage of the usage of the water and sewer system. Fayetteville residents are the majority users. And so, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to justify this being a 42-year service banker, and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to pay extra for being a minority user of the system. So I don't really I can't really grasp that fact. But the thing as far as risk goes, there's no cost of Fayetteville for risk for us. I mean, we're going to be there. I mean, we've got to rely on you for water and sewer. Farmington, as far as investments goes, we're talking about your investment. We invested $6.5 million in 2007, 2008, according to our contract requirements. And that was to revamp, part of that money was to revamp the existing system because it was failing or needed some improvements made, but to also build a new lift station, a new interceptor line, and a new, there's another line that we had to build. But that is being used by not only Farmington citizens, but citizens of Fayetteville also. And so our growth factor is affected by that, but I'm not really going to expound on that. But if you can look on page 2, and if you see like Keith was saying, our percentage increase for sewer is going to go up 50%. That's huge for the base rate. If we don't turn the faucet on, the base rate is going to be up 50%. When you go to the volume charge, we're going to be paying 83% higher volume charge than the citizens of Fayetteville. So, like I said again, I'm not going to go through this whole deal. I spent 2 weeks analyzing that report. I'm not a brain surgeon and I'm not an engineer and I can't, analyze everything, but I know what good common sense tells me. And so that's what I think I've put in here as far as the rate of return. What our contract spells out exactly what our rate of return will be calculated on, and it's based on those bonds, the coupon rate of those bonds, plus a premium of 1.5%. When you have zero rates on your bonds, you have zero debt. The only rate of return you're entitled to is 1.5%, the way I look at it. So that's a simplistic look from my standpoint. I'm going to use less of my time, so I appreciate your time tonight. And like I say, just this will give us some talking points. Talk to Mr. Becker and your city attorney, Kit Williams, and we think that we can sit down and have a good negotiation and talk about these recommendations that Black and Veatch is making, but also have some negotiation points based on these factors. And I thank you tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Penn. Who else would like to address us? Okay, then I will bring it back to the council. Now, the city attorney, at the end of the public hearing, the city council needs to pass a resolution that states that we had a public hearing. So if somebody would like to make a motion and a second for that. Is that correct, Kit?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to do that. We needed to have something in order to have a public hearing according to the Granicus system. And so I wrote up a resolution saying, we've had a public hearing, we've listened to everybody that wanted to talk, and so now we're going to be moving on to the ordinance after we pass this resolution. But this is only a resolution saying we've had the public hearing. It's not deciding any rates or anything like that.
So I would like to make a motion that we have had the public hearing and listened to everyone that wanted to speak.
Second?
second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pass a resolution saying that we had a public hearing. Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Let's move on to the next item. An ordinance to amend 51.136 monthly water rates and 151.137 monthly sewer rates to change water and sewer rates as recommended by the cost of service study conducted by Black and Veatch. Kit?
Well, we're on the first reading, so you want to suspend the rules, go to the second reading?
I would entertain a motion to go to the second reading.
So moved. Second?
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Yes, Carrie, would you please call the roll? I'm sorry.
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
An ordinance to amend section 51.136 monthly sewer rates and 51.137 monthly sewer rates to change water and sewer rates as recommended by the cost of service study conducted by Black and Veatch.
Okay. Staff, who has that?
I'm sorry, Mayor. What we would like to recommend is this be tabled. We've heard some of the comments. One of the things for the city of Farmington is the rate study was done pursuant to a contract that was in effect at the time that we began the study. That contract has currently expired, so we have to negotiate a new contract. So we would like to table the study. We would like to have time to meet with Farmington, also look at Black and Veatch at the entire rate study and come back to the council. We'd like to table that until the first meeting in December. Actually, that will give us sufficient time to try to negotiate an agreement, which I think we can successfully do at that time, and look at some of the other issues that we've heard. So that's staff's recommendation.
And also I want to thank everyone who shared comments during the public hearing on this item. And several people also have emailed comments, and I want to thank all of you that emailed us with comments. And it became clear to me that we had more work to do on this item. Our Water and Sewer Committee recommended tabling it. Is that correct, Teresa?
Yes, it is, Mayor.
And so I'm asking the council also to table this item tonight to allow us more time to make changes. We're going to take our time and we're going to work this thing out. Okay?
And if we,
Well, so what comments or questions do we have in the council?
I'm perfectly fine tabling this after public comment. I've got a lot of emails on this, and some of the emails don't really make sense. I teach math at the university, and we're talking about increasing certain things by percentage, which to the wholesale customers is a percentage of their total cost. And for the total cost to go more than our percent increase, that doesn't make sense. So either I'm misunderstanding it or some other people are misunderstanding it. I think it's important that everybody involved actually knows what it's going to do to their own residents. So that makes sense. And then obviously we need a contract with Farmington before we come back to this.
All right, we got to renegotiate the contract with Farmington anyway, so.
But as a mathematician, there's definitely been some stuff that's been emailed to me that doesn't make sense, and I hope that we can fix that.
Do we need a motion to table and then have discussion on the motion?
Yes, we would, and I would suggest that it is for December 6th. And the reason for that is that not only with Farmington, but maybe with other cities, we might have to be adjusting some of the original contracts we had, and then their city councils will have to look at it and agree, as well as you. And until we get the contracts in place, so we know exactly what we're going to be looking at, we really can't finish the rate study and its implications and make sure all the numbers work. And so that's why I thought we probably needed till December the 6th on that. The city council, of course, if negotiations fly by and we get everything done immediately, well, you can take it back off the table if you want to. But just working and seeing how these contracts go, the last time we had a contract with Farmington, it took months after they had their original agreement to get to the actual contract. So I don't want it to go months if possible, but I know it's going to go many weeks. So I think December 6th is probably a good date to shoot for.
I move that we table this until December 6th.
Second.
Well, let me take just some public comment in case there's somebody out there who wants to comment on anything. Everybody gets one turn to speak. You have 5-minute duration. Don't engage anyone in the public or any council members. Stay on topic. Please give us your name and address. Those participating by Zoom will be allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will speak after that. Susan, do you have anybody on?
No, sir.
Does anybody in the chamber want to say anything else? Because we're going to table this till December the 6th. 6th, what was it? 6th, thank you. Okay, there's not any public comment. Kara, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Arby,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
All right, thank you all very much. Thank you. All right. We have an ordinance number 2, we have an ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-021 located at 248 South Happy Hollow Road in Ward 1 for approximately 3.1 acres from RSF 4 residential single family 4 units per acre to NC Neighborhood Conservation. This was left on the second reading. I will entertain a motion to go to the third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Kara, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Arby,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-021 located at 248 South Happy Hollow Road in Ward 1 for approximately 3.1 acres from RSF 4 residential single family 4 units per acre to NC Neighborhood Conservation.
Okay, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Jonathan Kurth with the city's Development Services Department. I don't have any new information or updates to the request specifically, but there was a significant amount of public comment that came through for the council today and yesterday. And so I don't know what opportunity you've had to review that. So I wanted to just take a brief moment to try to characterize that for you in case you haven't had a chance to read it all. There was a mix of comment, predominantly, at least until this afternoon, it was in opposition to the request, with quite a few concerns expressed about a desire to see details of the plan. There are concerns about connectivity, which I believe was brought up at the last council meeting, that Happy Hollow likely represents the only opportunity to connect to this property for vehicle traffic. There's also concerns about Happy Hollow and its width and its current state being too narrow, and that there may be a high rate of accidents. There's also a comment that or acknowledgement that the recent calming that was installed on Happy Hollow has helped, but it may not be enough. There was interest in seeing a crosswalk reinstalled, which I believe Chris Brown, the Public Works Director, noted that there's a work order in for that to be done down towards 5th or 4th Street, I believe it is. There was also more recently this afternoon, one resident of, I believe, 3 or 4 lots to the south who shared a video showing some flooding, which I believe we have queued up if they decide to have that shared tonight. And also there was just a general request that all these issues be addressed before rezoning is approved on the property. As I noted, there was some comment on the other side of the spectrum. There were several pieces of comments submitted in favor of the request this afternoon. Those largely revolved around this representing an ideal location from their perspective for more density and infill and for opportunities for housing. And finally, as a reminder, since this will be the 3rd hearing we've had, staff is recommending in favor of the request. The Planning Commission did as well, albeit by a split vote of 4-2 with one commissioner recusing. And I'm happy to take questions. And Robert Rhodes is here as the applicant for the item. Thank you.
Okay. Would the applicant like to speak before the council?
Good evening. My name is Robert Rhodes. I'm with the law firm of Hall Estel, and I'm representing the petitioner here. As you all probably remember, I gave a full-blown presentation a month ago and then a little tiny presentation 2 weeks ago, and this one will even be tinier. Okay, so just to highlight some things. This property and this petitioner originally started with RIU, but got neither staff support nor planning commission support. He heard them and changed it. And that's why you have neighborhood conservation in front of you. And that is now both supported, as you heard from staff and from the planning commission. I think there was some concern about density, and I think anyone looking at this property can tell you that even though with this rezoning, technically you could put 31 lots, there's absolutely no way, no how anyone's going to put 31 lots on this. As I mentioned in the last 2 meetings, we believe 16 to 20 is probably what it will hit. This is compatible. This is compatible with the property around it currently, and it is compatible with the future plans of the city. Again, some of the comments that you heard, one of the ones that resonate with me is that we need more homes, and this is an ideal spot to put some more homes. There were questions about speed bumps, I think, in 2 agenda sessions ago, and I was surprised when I drove out there. There's 5, I mean, as you heard, there's 5 traffic calming devices. I don't mean just one bump, but I mean 5 different places on that stretch of road. So there are things being done, obviously, to make this safe. And I would agree with staff that this is not going to enhance, the dangers in that regard. I like the one positive comment that the email that was sent, probably a month ago, and in a nutshell that said, hey, we need homes, and this is close to a school with public transportation, sidewalks, and it's a good spot. So with that all said, I would ask you to pass this rezoning, and I stand ready, willing, and able to answer any questions. Thank you.
What questions do we have from the council, for the staff, or the applicant? Very good. All right, let's take some public comment. Everybody has one turn to speak. You have a 5-minute duration. Don't engage anyone from the public or any council member. Stay on topic. Please give us your name and address. Those participating by Zoom will be allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will speak after that. Susan, who do we have on Zoom?
Evelyn Rios Stafford.
Okay, go ahead, Evelyn.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name's Evelyn Rios Stafford, and I live at 527 South Sherman in Ward 1 in Fayetteville. And I live in the neighborhood where this rezoning is going to take place. In fact, the same property owner who wishes to develop this piece of land actually owns a separate piece of land directly behind my house that they are currently developing into two quadplexes, a triplex, and a duplex that they're going to put on the property behind me. And they've started construction. And so far, they've been a great neighbor. And I'm definitely in favor of what they're doing there. And I'm also in favor of this rezoning that they're going to do up on Happy Hollow. It is, this is a neighborhood that, I think it's important for density here. It's walking distance, that property from Happy Hollow Elementary School. It's along a ORT bus line that runs right up Happy Hollow. And the city, it looks like this year is going to complete the sidewalk, they've told us, all the way up Happy Hollow. There's a gap in the sidewalk, but there's going to be a complete sidewalk all the way up the street. What I've heard, because the applicant owns a property behind me, what I've heard from them is that one of the reasons that they want to do the rezoning is because over on Happy Hollow is because a lot of land there away from the street is not buildable. So because they can't build on it, what they want to do, it sounds like, is to reduce the lot widths with the new zoning so that they essentially have about the same density that they're allowed anyway under the current zoning. So in other words, it wouldn't increase the number of houses, but it would put them close together and leave some open space on the part of the lot that's not buildable, which sounds good to me. A couple other things I just wanted to point out. This last week, Fayetteville was named the toughest rental market in America to find a rental unit. And the Northwest Arkansas Council also did an annual report showing that our lack of housing is hurting and starting to have an effect on our quality of life. So, I'm definitely in favor of more housing. I'm in favor of more housing in areas that have schools and transit, and this is it. So thank you very much, Council.
Thank you. Who else?
Susan Bishop.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Susan. I live at 1661 Sandy Drive. I'm very much in favor of this. This is for a long time been an underutilized part of the city, and I'm glad to see property growth and new business and new buildings. This is going to be very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who else?
No one else on Zoom, Mayor.
Who else would like to address this in the chamber?
I'll speak, since I said
Come on up and address yourself.
Okay. Not used to doing this, but my name is Mike Nemesi, and my wife and I have the property at 380 South Happy Hollow. And I did write one of the emails because the last meeting, I got a call at 5:15 from one of the neighbors saying, hey, could you join the city council meeting tonight and talk about this rezoning ordinance? And I did join the meeting, but I really felt like I wasn't informed enough to speak up because, there's been a lot of work already been done on this. And so I just wanted to come tonight and because somebody at the meeting last time said there was no opposition. And everybody I've talked to, all my neighbors, they don't want this. So I just wanted to go on record that there is opposition to this. And primarily it's because of the traffic situation on Happy Hollow. Those cars come barreling down that road. We get all the traffic off crossover, cutting through the apartments, and it's too busy. And there's no enforcement of the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now, the cushions have helped. but they've also created some bad situations in that people come barreling down southbound and they slam on their brakes right before they get to the cushion. So I think if there were more done to enforce the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, it could be workable, but people just ignore it. So I just feel like 12 units on a 3-acre lot seems to be enough for that. Most of the other properties there are single-family homes. So I just wanted to register my objection, and I understand some other people have as well. So the biggest thing for me was 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know this was being discussed. And that property is just a couple of lots up from where I live. So I don't know what how we normally get informed that these kind of discussions are taking place, but we didn't really have enough time to organize a well thought out objection. But there are people on that street that think the density is just fine. So any questions?
Any questions from the council?
Okay.
Thank you. Who else would like to address us?
Mayor, there's one more on Zoom. I'm sorry, just raised their hand.
Okay. Go ahead.
Susanna Brennan.
Yes, hi, Susanna Brennan, 528 Happy Hollow Road. So I also am opposed to this rezone request. The reason being the traffic.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Ms. Brennan, could you speak up?
Is this any better?
A little, but just speak more loudly if you could.
Okay.
Yeah, at my age, it's a little harder.
All right. Yes, me too. I know the feeling. My issues are the traffic. I'm opposed because we don't need more traffic. It is a very dangerous road with steep ditches and a narrow country road. I'm also concerned about the compatibility. Especially now that I hear, and I haven't heard this before, and as Mike and Misi said, we didn't know this was even happening until a couple of weeks ago, that these buildings do not seem compatible with what's already there. And I understand people want infill and density, but in terms of being to scale with our neighborhood, it's not that. Now, it's nice to hear that we will be leaving some green space, and that's news to us too. But I would like to know how this project, this request can be approved when there's no site plan. Does that happen? How does that happen? And we neighbors would like to know that, and we'd like the traffic issues to be considered. Thank you.
Well, what we're discussing right now is the rezoning. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Otherwise.
So that, Jonathan, on the site plan.
Yes, Mayor. Are you asking me to speak to
Yes,
concern
please.
about not having a site plan available? A typical rezoning does not have a site plan. It's a request for a palette of uses and the requirements associated with those. So when the planning commission or what the council's asked to consider is those allowed uses, single family homes, accessory structures, whatever it may be, how they relate to their properties, the property sizes. It's not required or generally legally allowable for a site plan to be considered because a person could rezone a property and sell to somebody else and be under no obligation to stick with that previous site plan.
Does that answer your question?
Well, not exactly. Can you hear me?
Well, I don't know how exactly I could answer that. We don't do the site plans.
I see. So all we know then is that there will be some buildings, and the developer, Mr. Rhodes, says perhaps, what did he say, 16 or so? That's still pretty dense because they're going to be closer together. So how can it be approved? And I guess I just didn't understand the city council processes. I thought you approved something on the basis, you approve a rezone request on the basis of why it's needed and what the developer is proposing. So how can you do that without seeing their site plan?
Well, the Supreme Court does not allow us to consider that because this is only a question of use and use rights. What do they have a right to do, but not what they are actually planning on doing precisely, so that comes up later if this is rezoned, and then that would go to the Planning Commission to approve any large-scale development or preliminary plat. But at this level, we can only consider what the land could be used for. Now, one of the big things that zoning does is control density. And so the city council can consider the difference in densities between what is allowed now and what would be allowed under the newly requested plan, which is significantly more dense. And therefore, the city council can certainly think about the density, the potential increased traffic and everything else without ever seeing a site plan, but just considering what is allowed under this zoning, which is 10 units per acre, not 4. And so obviously that's a major change, and the city council can consider that. But you can't consider a site plan. There's none been shown, and it's really not a proper thing for the city council to consider at this point in time.
Thank you. That answers my question. So we still are concerned about the density and compatibility with the rest of the neighborhood and the traffic concerns. With 16 more units still would be quite a bit more traffic. Thank you. It's already pretty dangerous road.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Who else?
There's no one else on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay, let's go back to the chamber then. Is there anyone else in the chamber that would like to speak on this? Yes, it is.
Just come up.
Just come up to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Deanna Drake. I live at 4841 East Sandy Drive in Fayetteville. But my son is a resident on South Happy Hollow Road at 324. His name is Christopher Drake. He's out of town, couldn't be here tonight, and he asked me to speak for him. I know that on March 23rd, the Planning Committee went ahead and approved this for recommendation to you from an RSF4 to an NC. The reason for this is that, as she was talking, there was no plan on the site, except we know that he was asking, the developer was asking for, instead of 4 units per acre, family single homes, to be changed to a 10-unit apartment complex, 1 building per acre, for a total of 31 units. Now, instead of 12 houses on this property, you're looking at 31 individual homes. The traffic on that area would be at least 24 cars per unit, and on the increase, it would be 62 cars, at least, give or few, on that, increasing the traffic on a 2-lane highway, or street, excuse me, that's asphalt, but at many places has a drop-off into ditches. There's been very many accidents on that road. In front of my son's house is his mailbox. It's been run over at least 20 to 30 times and had to be replaced because they've run off the road. The surveyor was surveying the property in the area because there's multiple properties that are asking for changes in the city code. And the surveyor was almost run over several times while he was just doing that. And so I want to say that it is a hazard for traffic. It's an increase in traffic that is unnecessary because of the code that's already established would be plenty instead of 2/3 more. Let's see, there's no sidewalks. The sidewalks were supposed to be built on the $500,000 houses that are next to my son's property. When they constructed their houses, they gave the city money to have those established, and there was none given. So you still have the unsidewalked portion of the street that is a hazard, with more cars coming. Like I said, it's mainly family homes that are in that area. But most importantly, I'm here to discuss the drainage situation, because across from my son's house, Dan Cootie owns some property that I know y'all are probably aware of. He changed the code in that area for 20 houses on Mount Sequoia runoff area. He trimmed all of the shrubbery on the property, which caused water to come down on Happy Hollow Road and right into my son's property. It is now not a trickle through my son's property. It is a river every time it rains. There has been nothing done in 7 years. And I don't expect y'all to be looking at the drainage situation with just this change in the RSF2 and NC. But my son's property had a 1 foot deep by a 2 foot deep or width area of drainage through his yard. That's now a 5 foot wide by a 5 foot deep river that is in his yard whenever it rains. The water comes across Happy Hollow Road from the mountain, down his gravel driveway. We've had to replace it numerous times with thousands of dollars and thousands of man hours to put rocks and gravel and everything else in to fix this drainage problem. Y'all have done nothing. The engineers have been out there and they say, well, it's not on a plan to fix the drainage on Happy Hollow Road.
Time.
Okay. I appreciate your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address us? Okay, we're going to bring it back to the council.
I have a question for Jonathan. Will this proposed rezone allow multifamily, or will it remain single family?
It remains single family by right.
Okay, thank you.
What the wishes of the council are? We're on the third reading. What action or comments does the council
I've got
make?
I've got a couple points.
Okay.
I mean, one, I think that separate of this rezoning, Happy Hollow is due for some improvements, regardless of what's happening here. It is a pretty narrow street. It's unfortunate that people are driving very fast down. I believe there's traffic calming that is different than speed cushions that we can look at there. I'm not really a fan of speed cushions, and we've been using those more in the last year, and I've got some complaints about those. But there's some other options. And I think we mentioned that the development that was kind of up the hill was 7 years ago. Well, we've had 2 100-year floods since then. And unfortunately, we're probably going to have to design stuff better than we did. But when we have those 100-year floods, it's not because there's a development somewhere around you. It's because it's a 100-year flood in a lot of cases. It would be nice to know how often that floods. Is it just in those 2 major ones? Okay, so those are 2 of my points. As far as like where you would want density, I agree the houses right next to this don't exactly look like it, but you go 2 lots north, they definitely do. There's a P to ZD. If you go northwest, there's already NC, and then you usually want density around services. There's an elementary school that's close to this. There's a park that's close to this. There is a bus route that is within walking distance. So all of those make sense at places to increase density. And these will remain single-family homes at NC. We're not building an apartment complex. And there would be almost no chance that you could build 31 units in there. I think the most people have been able to build NC is like 6 or 7 units per acre. I guess I'll ask staff, even if we vote on this tonight, I would love to know what's the densest anybody's ever done NC.
That'd be something we'd have to research, but
Yeah.
you're generally correct. The yield of lots tends to be much lower than the actual allowance. We do know that RSF, for example, which is about a third of the city, usually gets developed at 2.5 units per acre.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't. The 16 to 22 seems to make sense what would go here. Traffic isn't created locally. Traffic happens when you have to drive somewhere. So the traffic that's right here wouldn't really cause traffic here issues. And if people are able to drive to the park here, that's less driving, or the elementary school. Or if you go up to Mission and crossover, you have a lot of services. You've got a neighborhood market. I think you've got 2 places to get grocery pretty close. So I feel like this makes sense in that context. The 2 lots right around it don't make sense, but in total, I think this makes sense. So, thank you.
Okay, what other comments do we have?
Mr. Mayor, I would agree with Councilman Scroggins that speed tables are an abomination to the Lord. And this street is a plethora of them. When cities grow organically, they frequently find infrastructure like this street that is too narrow for the volume that it entails. And I know we've got theories that narrow streets make safe drivers, and that may be in general true. But I think that the volume on this piece of infrastructure causes me to have caution. And while I think that the property in question could certainly afford greater than RSF 4, I think that the concerns that I hear cause me concern about NC density by right. I know the developer has indicated a desire for a certain level, but I'm very cautious going that direction. The street was remarkably narrow for the volume of traffic that it incurs, and I think that I'm not anticipating it being widened and addressed anytime in the near future. So I have grave cautions about this level of density, and want to be sure and express that it's not necessarily the drainage, which I think is going to become more and more an issue as Mother Nature brings us warmer weather and more intense rainfall, but it's actually that traffic issue that causes me the greatest concern. Thank you.
Anybody else? Teresa, you.
Thank you, Mayor. I too share some concerns about the compatibility of the area. Some of the drainage concerns that have been highlighted tonight and in that area. And then I just want a clarification from Jonathan. So if this is rezoned to NC, the developer could go and request a conditional use permit and actually build 3 and 4 family dwellings on that property. Is that correct?
That's correct. They'd have to go back to the Planning Commission and submit detailed plans and elevations similar to what I think some of the residents are asking for.
But under RSF 4, currently they would not be allowed. They could only have a 2 family dwelling. Is that correct?
By conditional use.
By
yes.
conditional use. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that there is a possibility that there could be cluster housing and there could be multifamily housing if a conditional use permit was approved.
That's correct.
Okay. I've been over there several times, kind of driving around, I guess contributing to the traffic, and there is a lot of cut through traffic there. There just is. That's just the way it's kind of set up because people want to get from 265 quicker over to Highway 16, and that's what I'm seeing. So I have some serious concerns about upzoning this more than what it is right now. And they are allowed to build 12 units right now as it is. Thank you.
Mark?
I have the similar concerns on the traffic, going and looking at that. That road needs improvement anyway. But with the current zoning still offering up to 12 units by conditional use, right?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
12 units by conditional right with the current zoning?
No, by right.
I mean by condition.
But the current
right.
RSF4
Okay.
zoning district would allow
So
approximately.
that's pretty good density for this lot, it seems to me. So it's hard for me to see that someone would possibly get it more crowded than that. And if there's one thing I've learned from my years of being on city council, we're presented with these ideas and ideals, but what you have to consider is what is the worst possible situation that could happen to this neighborhood with a rezoning. And I know that's not maybe the fatalistic approach that a lot of people want to see, but I've seen us be tricked so many times. People come in and they say, oh, we're going to do this. And that's nice. It's feasible that they would do that there. But then in the end, that's not what's there because because the zoning goes with the property. And if that person sells the property or has a change of heart, they get to utilize the zoning that we have approved. And currently in this property, I can't support an upzoning. I understand the arguments for it. And we do need housing. We do need density, but this is not the area, this is not the lots that we need to have higher density until we have a better situation with the cut through there on Happy Hollow to make sure that it's safe. So that's currently how I see it. So anyway, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to thank the neighbors for coming out and voicing your concerns and your emails. We've received all of that. We were asked to hold it for that reason. That's what these extra readings are about. So thank you for making time for coming out and for being available on Zoom. I do agree. I feel like the infrastructure is not quite matching with the street. And so, I'm wanting to maybe slow it down just a little bit, go back, keep it to the zoning that it is. And in fact, that there is a lot of more dwellings, just right next door, but then the neighborhood begins at the end of that street. So, it's okay that there's single family spaces and then right next to that, there's already some very dense spaces. So I'm feeling like wanting to keep that lower density and allow some time for the infrastructure to build there. If we are, it sounds like we're going to get some sidewalks soon. That's good. And then if we need to find some other solutions for the traffic, we need to do that as well. So I think. And then, of course, Mr. Drake, I saw his video. I don't know if y'all got to see his video on the flooding, but it was like a mudslide. It was very, very bad. And so he said from the email that it happens every single time it rains. So I feel like there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done in the area before we kind of make the situation worse. So I probably will not be supporting the rezone.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Jonathan, I have a question about, and I know I could have probably pulled this up somewhere here, but on our list of streets that are getting improvements, where is Happy Hollow in the grand scheme of having these extensions and, the sidewalks and maybe better gutters or something like that? Where do you know where we are on that street?
I do, and Chris Brown, the Public Works Director, is also on to correct me if I missed anything. It was recently overlaid, which with fresh asphalt, which is part of the traffic calming conversation, because there was a lot of concern from residents that the asphalt level may have gone up to the point where the existing speed tables were less effective because of that vertical difference was less. So that was a piece of that conversation, was the recent resurfacing of the street. And to Councilmember Harvey's point, There is indeed sidewalk on the work program for later this year, but it's possible that it won't be built until the beginning of 2023. And that's intended to connect the sidewalks that are closer to 4th and 5th Street with Mount Sequoia Woods to the north.
Okay, thank you. You know, some of the, I don't necessarily like the speed cushions, you know, but that's something we're using a lot. But I do like the process we go through now to get those, is that 70% of the people on the street have to agree to, the neighbors have to agree to put the speed cushions in. And, you know, so I think that's more collaborative than what we've had in the past. But as far as traffic calming, some of the things that we try to use around the city meet with great resistance. And, you know, lots of people don't like roundabouts. They don't like curves in the street. They don't like narrowing points in the street. They don't like the planters. So I don't know, you know, we're kind of trying to feel our way through what will be the best calming methods for the streets. Now, lots of people have mentioned cut through, and I'm not necessarily in favor of this rezoning, but the cut through traffic, I don't think is, if we don't rezone this, how does that help the cut through traffic? I don't really see that changes it at all, honestly. I'd love to hear from DeAndre on, you know, because he's also the other ward member from that part of town. And I know we tabled this to allow the citizens to get together, and I remember asking if 2 weeks was long enough for them to do that. So I want to make sure that we, you know, we did try to give everybody time to get together, and but just, you know, I know it's hard to do. So I'd love to hear what the other council member from that ward has to say about this.
Yes, go ahead, DeAndre.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And the concerns that each council member has voiced, they are legitimate. And I was thinking about it from a perspective of needing more houses. But as we, after receiving the information from many citizens, I am inclined to, I guess I'm leaning more toward, I don't think that this is the right time because, again, as you all have stated, that there is some work to be done. As it relates to the citizens who needed the extra time, I do believe that they were able to, that did happen, that they were able to get together and talk and discuss. So I think because of that reason, I think that tonight that we can go ahead and vote.
Well, yeah, we are going to go ahead and vote. It's on third reading. So, Holly, do you have anything, or anybody else got anything?
I definitely can understand the neighbors' concerns. However, like Sarah mentioned, I don't know that the rezone is going to affect the cut-through traffic. I think that there's other measures we can take to address traffic, even though they might not be as desirable as we would like. I'm inclined to support this because I think that we need more housing, and this would be a good place to have it. So thank you. And also, Jonathan, just to clarify, in the development stage, do we have to have a plan for drainage to make sure that the development is not further impacting that area and drainage wise?
That's correct. One of the tenets of the city's drainage criteria manual is that the post or the pre-development drainage patterns do not worsen after post-development, if that makes sense. So the intent is to capture everything crossing the property. And in some instances where there is a known issue, sometimes the city, as you all know, can work with residents to try to resolve something that's off-site that may not be the result of the development.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that would be the way that I would like to go. So thank you.
I have a question, and isn't there, and I think so, but I'm just wanting to be clear, there is Lindsay apartment housing close in that area, right?
Mayor, I can take that.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
The Cliffs Apartments, which is several hundred housing units, is I believe still owned by Lindsay Apartments to the north.
So, okay, so I'm wondering if, and maybe I should know this, but I don't, so I'm going to ask, are these issues that we're discussing tonight, what concerning this property, how is it impacting, or is it impacting the Lindsay property or those who live in that property, in that area? I'm sorry.
Who wants to take that one?
Well, if you're using it as a cut through, then you would turn on through and drive through the cliffs on Cliffs Boulevard to get back over to crossover. So it inevitably has an impact.
And Mayor, to that point, there was a discussion that much predates my time with the city of making this a much more robust network of streets through this area, for which Lindsay, I believe, cost shared, Mr. Williams, you can correct me, I think they cost shared work on Cliffs Boulevard to make it the sizable street that it is, to accommodate much larger volumes of traffic than are currently going through the property. So as far as traffic impacts go, Cliffs definitely has the capacity for it, if that's your major concern, Councilmember Jones.
And also, too, I've talked to several residents, and again, I'm torn because we think about accessibility, right? Kids being able to walk to school, and some of our citizens having access to transportation. So with that being the bus service, so I know what my initial thoughts are, but when I think about these the things that I just mentioned, I am inclined to support it.
Oh, okay. Any other comments from the council? All righty then. Carol, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
No.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
No.
Whitaker,
No.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
No.
Mayor, it looks like it is a 4-4 vote, so do you care to vote?
Yes, I'm going to vote yes.
So the ordinance passed.
Okay. Let's go on to number 4. An ordinance to approve vacation 22-015 for property located at 2584 North Candlewood Drive in Ward 3 to vacate a portion of a drainage easement. This was left on the first reading. I will entertain a motion to go to the second reading. Did I miss something?
Mr. Mayor, I believe we're on items.
Sorry. Let's go to number 3. I had the wrong one marked. An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-022 located at 3061 East Skilleran Road in Ward 3 for approximately 2.99 acres from RA Residential Agricultural to RSF 4 Residential Single Family 4 units per acre. This was left on the first reading also. This, I will entertain a motion to go to the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-022 located at 3061 East Skilleran Road in Ward 3 for approximately 3 acres from RA Residential Agricultural to RSF 4 Residential Single Family 4 units per acre.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Similar to the last item, I don't have any updates to the request. Also similar to the last item, we have received some additional public comments since the last hearing. I believe a little ways before the meeting, you received some correspondence from I think it was the Brookberry subdivision that was petitioning the applicant to consider offering a bill of assurance that would limit the number of units on the property. It is worth noting, I think Mr. Williams may have shared at the previous meeting, and if he didn't, you've heard it before. We cannot require a bill of assurance from an applicant, but it can be offered if it is in their interest. As of immediately before this meeting, we had not seen that. From staff and the Planning Commission's perspective, I did want to remind you all that we felt that the request to rezone the property from its agricultural zoning to RSF4 is compatible with the exclusively single-family zoning or exclusively single-family character of the area and the almost uniformly RSF4 zoning of the area. Accordingly, staff is recommending approval. And as a reminder, again, the Planning Commission did forward it to Council by a vote of 7-0. And I have Daniel Bearden online as the applicant, Mayor, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, would the applicant like to speak before the council? You have 10 minutes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Daniel Bearden, 3061 East Skillern Road. We are seeking to have our property rezoned to RSF4, the same zoning as much of the surrounding area. We are a single family that has purchased this property as anyone, including a developer, could have done. But again, we are a single family with the intent of building a single family home. We were attracted to the acreage that was in the middle of the city. We want the extra space for our two boys to run around, play, explore, and grow up. We do not have formal plans to present because we need to get past the rezoning phase before we can move forward with our planning of our home. We would like to start the process sooner than later because our hope is for our children to attend school up here. We do hear all of the concerns from the neighbors. Believe me, they have not been ignored. And what we plan for our home will not add to the issues that have been stated by neighbors in previous meetings. What we are asking is no different from zoning in surrounding neighborhoods and would not like to put any further restrictions on the property that are already set when acquiring RSF4, same as other properties in the area. One primary issue that was brought to our attention was the addition to the traffic in the area. Our two additional cars will not be a major contributor to the traffic. Thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, what questions do we have from the council for staff or the applicant? Nope. DeAndre, do you have anything?
Nope.
Okay.
No questions.
All right. All right, let's take some public comment. Everybody gets one turn to speak. You have a 5-minute duration. Don't engage anyone from the public or any council member. Stay on topic. Please give us your name and address. Those participating by Zoom are allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will speak after that. Susan, who do we have on Zoom?
No one has their hand raised, Mayor.
Is there anyone in the chamber who'd like to speak on this?
Good evening. My name is Robert Rhodes, and I am not representing, but I am helping Brookberry Subdivision as I live in Brookberry Subdivision. And the request that we have put forward, and I think you probably have an email from me or maybe from one of our POA members, is that we would like to chat with Mr. Bearden and sell him on the beauty of having RSF4, not RSF2, but RSF4, but with only one single condition, that he would limit it to the property to 4 homes. And I know that an email has been sent to him. Yesterday, I called, left a voicemail, and I would ask you to do one of 2 things. Either vote this down or hold it for the 3rd reading, and maybe by then I can have that conversation with Mr. Bearden and at least attempt to convince him. I thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the council. What action would the council like to take, or what discussion would the council like to have?
I would like to start by thanking the applicant for being so transparent with us and letting us know exactly what he was planning to do, even though he didn't have to. I think that RSF4 is completely appropriate. All of the surrounding areas are RSF4. I don't think it's fair to ask the applicant to limit the density, even though the density in the surrounding areas is exactly the same and they aren't required to be limited. So I'm in favor of this request, and I hope that you all will be as well. Thank you.
Well, okay, we're on the second reading, though. Keep that in mind. All right. What other discussion do we want to have?
You know, I always like to give people an opportunity to work it out. So I don't know if there's a really big downside of holding it for 2 weeks. And if they can't work it out, then we can move forward with our vote at that time. So that's what I would recommend here tonight.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes. Mike.
I'll go ahead and go first. Sorry, Sonia.
No, Sonia, you can go ahead first.
Oh, I was just going to agree with Councilmember Turk to allow them time to have a chat and see if they can come to an agreement.
Do you have an opinion on that, DeAndre?
Yes, I'm supporting the two of them, hopefully able to collaborate and work something out.
So you're okay with tabling it as well?
I am, yes, Mayor Jordan, I'm okay with it.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
I would be comfortable tabling it as well. I think it might even be in the applicant's best interest to pursue a tandem lot as opposed to changing the zoning, that he won't be required to have the street frontage. He can have more grounds for his boys to play in. So I would like to give him additional time to explore his alternatives.
Is everybody?
Yeah, I'm fine with extra time. I'm also fine with RSF4. The majority of the city is RSF4. It seems kind of weird to say that you can't have what the majority of the city is or denser. So, I mean, I'll vote for whatever they come up with, or RSF4 in 2 weeks.
Sarah?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah,
So we'll hold this for 2 weeks. Mark? Okay.
Mayor, may I offer a quick point of clarification to temper perhaps Councilmember Wiedeker's expectations? I did want to comment that a tandem lot would still require the minimum lot area requirement for the underlying zoning. And since Mr. Bearden only has 3 acres and RA requires 2 acres per lot, a tandem lot is not an option under the current zoning district. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll just go on to the next one then. Now, where I began, an ordinance to approve vacation 22-015 for property located at 2584 North Candlewood Drive in Ward 3 to vacate a portion of a drainage easement. Now, this was also left on the first reading. I would entertain a motion to go to the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Kara, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
An ordinance to approve VAC 22-015 for property located at 2584 North Candlewood Drive in Ward 3 to vacate a portion of a drainage easement.
Okay, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Similar to the last 2 items, I don't have any new updates or information on this item. As a reminder, the applicant's representative, Mr. Rhodes, did ask the council to leave the item on the first reading to work out some concerns with the neighboring property owner to the south. Again, staff's recommendation is a conditional approval of this request. One piece of that is that if they damage any utilities in moving this, or vacating this drainage easement and moving an associated drainage line, that it's at their expense. And the second piece is that the drainage line that they need to abandon and move is approved prior to the easement or the vacation being finalized. And I'm happy to take questions. And again, Mr. Rhodes is here in person.
Would the applicant like to speak with the council? You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Robert Rhodes, Hall Estill, representing the applicant. And actually, I'm actually representing the applicant and the former owner of this property. The former owner is the Harbaughs. And to give you a little background, they bought this house about 20 years ago, and unbeknownst to them, their driveway and part of the retaining wall was built on this easement. They didn't know about it until they went to sell it. The Timberlakes, who I also represent, and Mr. Timberlake, wave your hand, is here if you have any questions for him. Also, Tom Henley, our engineer, is here as well if you have questions of.
Well, you get 10 minutes, Robert.
No, I'll be quick. That's if you have
Okay,
questions.
I mean, if you're going to introduce other speakers.
No, it's I won't even need all 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
I'll tell you why.
All right, you tell me why.
Okay, so anyways, and by the way, Tom Henley actually designed this subdivision. Okay, that may be more information that you need, but I think that's an interesting fact. We agree to all the conditions that the city has imposed on us as far as what we need to do. And really the only issue we had was with our neighbor, and there's only one neighbor involved because the easement's in between the two pieces of property. And so we kind of talked about some various and sundry things. We are requesting a temporary construction easement from said neighbor. The neighbor literally, as of about 5 minutes before the meeting started, we chatted and they said they didn't really want to give us the construction easement. And that's fine because according to Mr. Henley, we can do the work. It might be a little bit slower, might take a little more money, but we can do it within the easement that we currently have. So with that said, I have a text message from the neighbor's lawyer, and that is John Elrod. And I think you heard him 2 weeks ago when we both asked for 2 more weeks, okay? And and he said I could read this to him. To confirm our conversation, my clients will not give the easement. They will not object to the proceedings before the city council, but reserve all rights if the trees are damaged or die because of the works being done. Thanks, Robert. Okay, so I say all that to say, the reason we didn't ask to go forward 2 weeks ago was we were trying to work out a couple of issues. And, I think we literally had 4 or 5 other things that we agreed to, such as repairing the sod or the grass, if it's just grass and it's not sod, leveling things and that nature. That's really, a lot of those things are already in our plans. And, we're going to be good, responsible citizens. The Timberlakes just would like to get this project started and done so they can enjoy their house. And of course, the neighbor would like to make sure that we do it properly. And we've got one of the best engineers, and we've got a contractor that also is an engineer by nature. And so we should get it done effectively. If we don't, the city will hold us responsible, and we'll do it right.
We'll handle that end of it.
Yeah, so we'll do it right at some point, okay? But I think we'll do it right on the first time. I would ask you to approve this partial vacation of this easement. And I stand ready, willing, and able to answer any questions, as does Mr. Henley.
Okay, what questions does the council have for the staff or the applicant? Anything? All right, DeAndre, do you have anything?
No, Mayor Jordan, I don't.
Okay. All right, well, let's take some public comment then. Everybody has one turn to speak. You have a 5-minute duration. Don't engage anyone from the public or any council member. Stay on topic. Please give us your name and address. Those participating by Zoom will be allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will speak after that. Susan, who do you have on Zoom?
No one on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay, is there anyone in the chamber that'd like to speak on this? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the council. What action would the council like to take, or what discussion would the council like to have?
Do we need to move it on to the next reading?
Well, I usually see if you want to discuss anything, but you can move it on to the next reading if you wish to.
Yeah, I move we suspend the rules and go to the second reading.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion to second to go to third and final reading. Kara, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Hurd.
Yes.
An ordinance to approve VAC 22-015 for property located at 2584 North Candlewood Drive in Ward 3 to vacate a portion of a drainage easement.
Okay, any final comments from the council? Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Hurd.
Yes.
And the reason I do that is because a lot of times y'all want to have a discussion and then somebody's trying to jam it on to the third reading and everybody says, don't jam it on to the third reading, Mayor. And so that just saves me a lot of issues. All right. Here we are at new business. Number one, an ordinance to rezone that property described in the zoning petition RZN 22-024 located at 502 South College Avenue in Ward 1 for approximately 0.28 acres from NC Neighborhood Conservation to RAU Residential Intermediate Urban. Kip.
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby changes the zone classification of the property shown on the map, Exhibit A, and the legal description, Exhibit B, both attached to the Planning Department's agenda memo from NC Neighborhood Conservation to RI-U Residential Intermediate Urban. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends the official zoning map of the City of Fayetteville to reflect the zoning change provided in Section 1.
Hey, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. This property is found in Ward 1. It's just south of downtown Fayetteville on the east side of College Avenue between 5th Street to the north and Martin Luther King Boulevard to the south. Oop, you're not seeing anything, are you? Let's try that again. I apologize. Well, one last try here. We'll just do it like this. Again, we're just south of downtown Fayetteville. As you can see on the black outline on the aerial map here, we're on the east side of College Avenue between 5th Street, which is immediately to the northwest, and Martin Luther King Boulevard to the south. It is currently developed with just one single-family home, which was built in 1960. The request is to rezone the property from NC Neighborhood Conservation to RIU Residential Intermediate Urban. Staff's review of the request included an assessment, of course, of land use compatibility. This was resulted a fairly diverse yield of land uses, which is perhaps unsurprising in the Walker Park neighborhood. Within about 500 feet, staff found dwellings and lots of various sizes. I believe there were 2 religious institutions, 2 churches, of course, Jefferson School to the south. I think there were 4 or 5 duplexes, 2 apartment buildings down on 7th Street, and at least 1 fourplex. So that is to say there's a wide diversity of land uses and specifically housing types, which staff finds that residential intermediate urban complements with its allowance for single, 2, 3, and 4 family housing. Similarly, well, I guess I'm just cursed to not have a presentation that works tonight. I'm sorry. That was bound to happen, wasn't it? Similarly, staff found the proposal to rezone the property from to residential intermediate urban to complement our long-range planning goals. The future land use map designates this or anticipates this area of town being developed with a wide variety of housing types. Similarly, the Walker Park plan includes a mixture of prioritization between preserving single-family homes, but also encouraging additional housing types where appropriate, and staff feels that College Avenue is one of those appropriate locations. When looking at it from our long-range planning goals and City Plan 2040, we feel it is quite appropriate. We feel this is appropriate infill, which you can see in the properties, all the marks it gets from the infill matrix. It's near Fire Station 1 downtown, has access to water and sewer. It's near City Park, City Trail. ORT bus routes 10 and 20 go nearby the property. And it is also one of those rare parts of town that has a very high intersection density, meaning as a well-established street grid that allows a diffusion of traffic and limiting of congestion. With those issues in mind, and not finding any additional issues, including no public comment either at the Planning Commission before it or after it, staff is recommending in favor of the request. The Planning Commission felt similarly, and they forwarded it to Council unanimously, recommending it be approved 9-0. And I'm available for questions, and I believe Ashley David is here in person as the applicant for the item. Thank you, and apologies again for the technical difficulty.
It's okay. Would the applicant like to, yes, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Council. My name is Ashley Davis. I am the applicant and the property owner. I don't have anything to add to what Jonathan said, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, what questions do we have from the council for staff or the applicant? Okay, DeAndre, do you have anything?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's take some public comment then. Everybody gets one turn to speak. You have a 5-minute duration. Don't engage anyone in the public or any council member. Stay on topic. Please give us your name and address. Those participating by Zoom will be allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will speak after that. Susan, who do you have on Zoom?
No one on Zoom, Mayor.
Did you have any questions, Mark? Okay. All right. Do we have anyone in the chamber that'd like to speak on this topic, rezone? Okay. All right. This is an ordinance on the first reading. What action would the council like to take, or what discussion would the council like to have?
I haven't heard anything just yet from anyone. We do have the RIU right next door, and it's a very busy, dense area. So I'm definitely inclined to support it, but I'd love to hear what Councilmember Jones, if you've heard from anyone.
Sure.
No, I have not. No, I have not. And I'm hoping, I'm both interested and hoping to hear from, to hear concerns from our constituents. But no, I haven't heard anything.
Okay. So what y'all want to do?
Yes, I move we suspend the rules and go to the second reading.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-024, located at 502 South College Avenue in Ward 1 for approximately 0.28 acres from NC Neighborhood Conservation to RIU Residential Intermediate Urban.
Move we suspend the rules and go to the third and final reading.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-024, located at 502 South College Avenue in Ward 1 for approximately 0.28 acres from NC Neighborhood Conservation to RIU Residential Intermediate Urban.
Any final comments from the council? Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Number 2, an ordinance to rezone that property described in the zoning petition RZN 22-026 located at 2015 South Vale Avenue in Ward 1 for approximately 3.50 acres from NSG Neighborhood Services General to CS Community Services. Kit.
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby changes the zone classification of the property shown on the map, Exhibit A, and the legal description, Exhibit B, both attached to the Planning Department's agenda memo from NSG Neighborhood Services General to CS Community Services. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends the official zoning map of the City of Fayetteville to reflect the zoning change provided in Section 1.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor.
It looks
There we
familiar.
go. All right. This property is also located in Ward 1, although it takes us quite a bit further south into Fayetteville, towards Mount Kessler, but not quite that far. We are in southwest Fayetteville, just northwest of the intersection of Razorback and Cato Springs. The property in question is bordered by Razorback Road on the west and Vale Avenue on the east, and the associated railroad track just beyond that for the Arkansas and Missouri Railroad. It is a largely undeveloped piece of property, except for a single-family home whose roof you can see on the aerial image here, which fronts onto Vale Avenue. Otherwise, it's largely clear. You can see quite a bit of tree canopy located, especially on the property lines and scattered throughout the site. The most prominent characteristic of the site, however, is the unbuilt right-of-way that bisects it from east to west. You can see a little divot in the Razorback Road property line there, which indicates approximately where that right-of-way begins on the west side of the property and running horizontally across to Vale Avenue. This property does have some recent history that probably makes it familiar to the City Council. The first time you all saw it recently was in April of last year. There was a request to vacate that piece of right-of-way I was referencing that bisects the property. That request ultimately failed. The request was denied. There was felt to be a valuable public interest in maintaining it. Otherwise, there'd have been a very significant mega block, if you will, lacking connectivity between Cato Springs to the south and a smaller residential road further north. Junction Street that you see on the map here is actually just a private road that serves some apartment dwellings there. Following that, and more recently in February of this year, the City Council rezoned the property from its CS Community Services designation to NSG Neighborhood Services General. Since then, there's been a bit more history that you all have not seen. The applicant came before the Planning Commission for a conditional use permit for multifamily housing, which is only allowed by conditional use in the NSG zoning district. That was approved, and afterwards, large-scale development plans were submitted to planning and taken to the Planning Commission, or taken to planning. It was during that high level of detailed review that comes with getting very detailed civil drawings and building elevations and things like that, that planning identified that the proposal was running into conflicts with the lot area requirement of the underlying NSG Neighborhood Services zoning district. The applicant appealed staff's interpretation on this issue to the Board of Adjustment. And just recently that went to the board where it was denied. They upheld staff's determination of how we apply our lot area requirements. And so that brings us to tonight, which the relief would be to rezone the property. And in this case, rezone it back to CS Community Services as it was prior to February of this year. That said, and as council may recall, staff did speak in opposition to rezoning it or downzoning it to NSG earlier this year. From a land use compatibility standpoint, we felt that community services was complementary to the area. There is a comparatively robust amount of infrastructure available to the site. Razorback Road is a 4-lane state highway that connects to Interstate 49 and a wider street network. Similarly, there's a wide variety of land uses in the area. While it's mostly housing in immediate proximity, there are non-residential uses along Cato Springs Road. Of course, the concrete plant to the east that we feel that the non-residential and residential uses allowed in community services would be complementary of. From a land use planning standpoint, staff similarly feels that the request is consistent to go back to community services. Again, a lot of that has to do with the existing infrastructure and the transportation network. Not only is the street network fairly robust here, but there's also access to Razorback Transit. The trail system for the Town Branch Trail is a little bit further to the north. Accordingly, we are recommending in favor of the request. I'm sorry, I got out of the habit of using my slides immediately because it didn't work one time. And the infill score also was a factor in that. Again, I mentioned the transit already, but of course there's water and sewer. Even if you don't go to the north to the trail system that's available further north on Razorback, there's also a trail available further east along Cato Springs. In terms of the Fayette Junction plan, staff still feels that the CS Community Services Zoning District most readily fits the goals of this plan, which was to have a fairly intense hub at this area. Granted, it's been many years since that plan was adopted, about 14, but we do feel that there are still potentials to realize pieces of it. Again, we did not find any issues with the property. It's not in a floodplain. There aren't significant natural resources, and that was one of our reasons also previously for supporting keeping this level of intensity allowance on it. We do recommend in favor of it. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the Planning Commission, when considering the issue, recommended it be approved as well, forwarding it to you all unanimously. To date, there has been one piece of public comment. There is a resident to the south of this property that felt that the conditional use permit process for the multifamily housing offered them some level of protection for some concerns they had about a dumpster enclosure being placed near their property line. Otherwise, I'm happy to take any questions the council has. And I believe I have Will Kellstrom as the applicant for this item, but I'm not certain if he is online or in person.
Would the applicant like to speak? Okay,
Thank you.
come on out. You have 10 minutes.
Will Kellstrom on behalf of the applicant. Well, I was prepared to get up here and tell you all this, the long jaded history of this project, but Jonathan's already done a pretty good job of that. So with that, the only real comment I have is that I apologize for taking up y'all's time on the first request. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, so this was what it originally was, right? And now
That is-
we're going back. We changed it, and now we're going back to the original.
That's the request, yes.
Okey-doke. Just wanted to be sure I got that straight. All right. So what questions do we have from the council or the staff? I mean, or the council for the staff or the applicant? Anything? DeAndre, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Let's take some public comment then. Everybody has one turn to speak. You have a 5-minute duration. Don't engage anyone from the public or any council member. Stay on topic. Please give us your name and address, and those participating by Zoom will be allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will speak after that. Who do you have on Zoom?
No one on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay. All right. I'm going to bring it back to the council. What discussion would the council like to have, or what action would the council like to take?
It seems like we were okay with it at one point, so I move to suspend rules and go to second reading.
Second.
We've been here before, so. Did we get a second on that?
Yes,
Okay.
second. Yeah.
Okay. Tara, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-026, located at 2015 South Vale Avenue in Ward 1, for approximately 3.5 acres from NS Neighborhood Services General to CS Community Services.
Move we suspend the rules and go to the third and final reading?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to third and final reading. Karen, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-026, located at 2015 South Vale Avenue in Ward 1, approximately 3.5 acres from NSG, Neighborhood Services General, to CS, Community Services.
Okay, what final comments do we have in the council?
The applicant is on the golf course asking for a mulligan, and so I don't see any opposition to it, Mayor.
That's good. Anything else? Kara, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to number 3. An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 22-025 located at 507 South Church Avenue in Ward 1 for approximately 0.17 acres from NC Neighborhood Conservation to RIU Residential Intermediate Urban.
Be it I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby changes the zone classification of the property shown on the map, Exhibit A, and the legal description, Exhibit B, both attached to the Planning Department's agenda memo from NC Neighborhood Conservation to RIU Residential Intermediate Urban. And Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends the official zoning map of the City of Fayetteville to reflect the zoning change provided in Section 1.
Okay. Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually received a request from the applicant yesterday that this item be tabled to the August 16th council meeting. I am prepared to present on it if the council's interested, but the applicant is not available, and they did understand they didn't want to start the reading process until there was a full hearing.
See.
And I think this also dovetails nicely. I believe some of y'all may have received some public comment very shortly before the meeting about a nearby property owner who wanted to coordinate with the applicant. I don't know if that's the applicant's reason for requesting the tabling, but there might be some nice serendipity there. I'm happy to take questions.
Son, heard anything?
No, I haven't. I'm okay and concur with the tabling if that's what they want to do.
Okay, DeAndre, you heard anything?
No, I have not.
Okay, so I assume the council is going to table this item.
Or just leave it on the first reading, right?
That's right. We'll just leave it on the first reading then.
Mayor, may I ask Mr. Williams a question? Mr. Williams, if the request was to table it specifically to the second meeting in August, would that be more appropriate to table?
Oh, yes. Well, okay, go ahead. You do that.
I move we table to the second meeting in August.
Second.
Okay.
Do we need public comment?
We'll
Even if
take
we're-
some.
Okay.
We're going to table it. Let's take some public comment. Everybody got one turn to speak. 5-minute duration. Don't engage anyone from the public or any council member. Stay on topic. Give us your name and address, and those participating by Zoom will be allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will speak after that. Susan, who do you have?
No one has raised their hand, Mayor.
Okay, is there anyone would like to address us on this topic in the chamber? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table. Correct. All right. Kara, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to number 4. An ordinance to amend 92.04 sale of diseased animals, kennel and pet shop regulation to prohibit the retail sale of dogs, cats, and puppies and kittens unless obtained from an incorporation with the Fayetteville Animal Shelter or another animal rescue organization, and to declare an emergency. Kit.
Whereas the City of Fayetteville has an interest in maintaining the public safety and welfare of citizens and residents of Fayetteville and its visitors, excuse me, and whereas Arkansas Code annotated 14-54-1037 provides that cities shall have the power to prevent cruelty to animals, and whereas the Humane Society of the United States estimated that there are at least 10,000 puppy mills in the United States, fewer than 3,000 of which are regulated by the United States Department of Agriculture, and whereas according to the Humane Society of the United States, puppy mills are high-volume dog breeding facilities that churn out puppies for profit, ignoring the needs of the puppies and their mothers. And whereas, according to the Humane Society of the United States, puppy mills commonly sell through retail pet stores, and the majority of the puppies sold in pet stores are, in fact, from puppy mills. And whereas current state and federal regulations do not adequately address the sale of puppies and kitten, mills, dogs, and cats in retail pet shops, and whereas Petco and PetSmart, the city's largest pet supply stores, have corporate mandates against the sale of dogs and cats, and both work with local pet rescues and shelters to allow pet adoptions through those organizations at their store locations, and whereas it is in the interest of the city of Fayetteville to promote and ensure humane approaches and standards for animal disposition and ownership by encouraging the adoption of rescue dogs and cats. Now therefore it be ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amend Section 9204 by enacting a new subsection C as shown below. Quote, subsection C, it shall be unlawful for a pet shop to offer for sale or to display any dog, cat, puppy, or kitten unless obtained from and in cooperation with the Fayetteville Animal Shelter or an animal rescue agency or organization. Every pet shop offering for sale or displaying any dog, cat, puppy, or kitten shall display a label stating the name and address of the organization supplying said animal on the animal's cage. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby determines that this ordinance should become effective without delay because it will help prevent the sale of sick animals from puppy mills and other commercial breeding facilities in which the health of the animal being bred is disregarded, which is necessary for the public peace as well as the health and safety of Fayetteville residents. Therefore, the City Council hereby declares an emergency exists such that this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage and approval. And Mayor, this afternoon, after some consultation and comments from the public and others, I thought that subsection C should be somewhat expanded to make sure that the other shelters besides the Fayetteville Animal Shelter could be accessing our pet stores, but I wanted that under the and with the okay and cooperation of the Fayetteville Animal Shelter. I wanted them to be able to approve that to make sure that whatever other shelter might want to use the pet stores, it would be approved by Fayetteville Animal Services. And I also thought that the volunteer animal rescue organizations should also be approved by Fayetteville Animal Services. They have a lot of experience in this and they know which is the real animal rescue groups. I think there are a lot of them in there. My wife does one herself, but so I rewrote this a little bit, added a little bit to it, and I would hope there would be an amendment to it. Let me read you what I'm proposing subsection C should say. It shall be unlawful for a pet shop to offer for sale or to display any dog, cat, puppy, or kitten unless obtained from and in cooperation with the Fayetteville Animal Shelter, a government or nonprofit animal shelter approved by the Fayetteville Animal Services, or a nonprofit animal rescue organization approved by Fayetteville Animal Services. So that is the sentence that would have been changed to the first sentence, and so I would recommend that to the City Council at this point in time to make this a little bit more clear and make sure that Fayetteville Animal Services can use their expertise to make sure it is the right kind of group that we are going to be helping by allowing them to display their animals.
Let me ask the two sponsors of the ordinance, do you have a concern about amending to that?
I don't. I think that, you know, our animal shelter, I do agree with the city attorney on this. I appreciate the clarification because I did get the emails and I thought, well, that's a good point there. We don't have this outlined. I think our animal shelter already works with quite a few rescue groups and possibly other animal shelters in the area. I'm looking at Justine there and she's nodding. So I think they're more qualified to know who the best shelters and, you know, that sort of thing would be. And I think that they would also, like we also have a county shelter. This was something that was brought up, and I'm pretty sure Fayetteville Animal Shelter already works with Washington County. She's nodding again, so she'll come up and outline this a little bit more too, I think. But I feel comfortable with these changes.
Holly, do you feel comfortable with it?
Yes, I agree with Kit and Sarah. I think that this would broaden or make this a little bit more flexible, but also offer the same protection that we have the Animal Service Department involved. So I'm in favor of this amendment.
Okay, so is that a motion?
I move to amend subsection C to Kit's recommendation.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have an amendment to subsection 3. Any discussion with the council? Okay, DeAndre, do you have anything?
No,
Okay,
I don't have anything to add to that. No.
okay. All right. Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
Okay, now we have an amendment. All right, Justine.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Board President, thank you. Way down here. All right. Good evening. It's good to see you at the end of this meeting. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about how this came about. Back, I would say late 2019, early 2020, right, and when things were getting real fun with the pandemic. Our Animal Services Advisory Board, which is one of the city's boards that is made up of citizen members as well as Representative Bunch, who is our council representative, had brought forward. There had been a business that had opened up in Rogers, had gotten a lot of negative public feedback because of their business practice of selling at commercial retail pet sales of puppies. And they wanted to look at our current ordinance, see what we could do to improve that, to further Fayetteville's, overall mission to be a very humane community. We have a very pet-loving community, and we wanted to further that interest. So the members researched, discussed, and voted in favor of Animal Services staff bringing forward a change to the current pet sales ordinance to not allow commercial pet sales of dogs and cats. And I wanted to give a little bit of clarification too, because we have had a lot of comments back and forth today that I've seen, and I'm sure that you've seen as well. This in no way would affect anybody who is wanting to have a small scale breeding operation. If you have a couple of dogs that you want to breed and you're wanting to sell them privately, personally, that's fine. This is just addressing the sale of dogs and cats in a retail outlet. As also previously mentioned, both PetSmart and Petco, which are our two biggest current pet supply stores that have been here for years, both have corporate mandates against the sale of dogs and cats. So when you go in those stores, the pets that you're seeing there are being sourced from either local municipal shelters, 501c3 animal rescue organizations. So when you see those, sometimes people get confused about what that is. And then also something I've seen kind of thrown around a little bit too is just the idea that if a store was wanting to sell puppies, it doesn't mean that they can't still operate a pet supply business. So of course we welcome pet supply businesses in Fayetteville and the competition that they bring. But what we're really targeting here is the fact that the sourcing of these puppies that come into these retail outlets are coming from puppy mills. And puppy mills are a place that no one ever really wants to be. They are commercial dog breeding facilities in which the health of the dogs is disregarded in order to maintain a low overhead and maximize profits. There's very little oversight. The conditions are deplorable. A lot of these dogs that I have personally seen and others in our community that do rescue work, if you've ever dealt with a dog that has come from a puppy mill, and I'm talking about the ones that don't make it to the pet store, the ones that are left there in cages where they never see grass, they don't get touched by humans, they don't go outside, they never receive vet care, they never receive any kind of grooming services. It's a pretty horrific place. And I think it's really hard for the average customer to associate that sometimes with what they see in a bright lit store that's, you know, happy with, I'm sure, very welcoming customer service. People don't understand, you know, what they're helping to continue to propagate. And that was kind of the purpose behind, that is the purpose behind this ordinance. You know, Fayetteville, we are very lucky to live in a community that is so supportive of our animal services. Like even in the Northwest Arkansas region, I feel like our animal services division receives more support than any other, you know, local community, and we are so appreciative of that. Currently, I have more dogs in my facility than I've had in probably the last 3 years. We're definitely seeing a lot of people in a lot of tough places that are needing to place their pets. We definitely do not have a lack of adoptable pets in our community, and certainly in the Northwest Arkansas region. And this is not just an issue that Fayetteville is facing. I work closely, as Sarah said, with other local shelters, particularly Springdale, and their director has been in the same place for a long time. They're just inundated with people that either put off having their pets spayed during the pandemic or, you know, financially or just really struggling. So there's definitely not a lack of adoptable pets, and we want to make those a priority because those, you know, they didn't ask to be here, but they're here, and we want to give them the best shot that we can at finding a loving home. We have a vet on staff, of course, to ensure, you know, that our puppies that are put up for adoption are healthy. So in summary, that's what this ordinance is for. We just really are wanting to target this. You know, we can't regulate what happens outside Fayetteville city limits, but we can take a stand on the product that is here, and that is something that, you know, we don't want to see, that these puppies coming in from puppy mills and being sold. In addition, you know, a lot of places that sell these puppies, they sell for a lot of money, like thousands of dollars. And a lot of people don't have thousands of dollars to initially spend on a pet, so they offer financing through a private entity. And a lot of times those interest rates are 30% and up. And then, you know, if you default, it's even more penalties. And in my communications with directors from both the Humane Society of the United States and Best Friends Animal Society, that was something that came up when these places open in college towns, particularly like we have a lot of people that maybe don't have the financial know-how or the savvy to understand when they might be taking advantage of. They're not reading the fine print because it's a very emotional thing. So that's what we're trying to prevent with this ordinance moving forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Okay, do we have any questions for Justine, or do the two sponsors of the ordinance like to make a statement, or what questions do we have for Justine first?
I don't have any questions. I'm pretty clear on everything.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank y'all for bringing this forward.
DeAndre, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
No questions.
Okay. All right. The sponsors want to say anything, or you want to go on to public comment, or?
Well, just very briefly, I would say that, you know, I've been on the Animal Services Advisory Board for a while, and I'm glad Justine pointed out that we started talking about this when the store first opened in Rogers. So that was 2019 or 2020, and we had a pandemic, and, you know, this kind of got put on the back burner a little bit, but it is something we had talked about multiple times over the past several years, and started the process of actually writing it. And just, you know, it just kind of, there always seemed to be a big agenda and everything going on, and it was kind of asked to be, well, let's wait a little while, and now's the time to do it, I think. Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to add kind of how I got involved in this. I had approached Kit and Justine to work on our pet care ordinance to improve our requirements for shelter for outdoors because we had gotten some public comments from concerned residents about care of animals. So I was meeting with them and they mentioned that Sarah had brought up this ordinance. And so I asked to be a part of it, and she graciously allowed me to co-sponsor this. So that's how I got involved, and I am very much in support of this. So thank you.
That's actually the other way around because I did not bring this forward. I forgot who it was that started it on the Animal Services Advisory Board, but Holly is the one that really took it to the front burner this past couple of weeks. So, and I think Justine was probably the one that brought it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the council or anything? Let's take some public comment. Everybody gets one turn to speak. You have a 5-minute duration. Don't engage anyone in the public or any council member. Stay on topic. Please give us your name and address. Those participating by Zoom will be allowed to speak first, and those present in the chamber will be allowed to speak after that. Who would like to address us?
Mayor, I have Elizabeth Orick on Zoom.
Okay, go ahead.
Elizabeth, you'll need to unmute.
Oops, sorry, I thought you did that for me. All right, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Wonderful. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Elizabeth Orick. I'm the National Manager of Puppy Mill Initiatives for Best Friends Animal Society, and I'm here on behalf of our Fayetteville members, supporters, partners, and staff in full support of this ordinance. There are a lot of reasons why Fayetteville should support humane pet sales, and Justine did a great job outlining those. So I'm just going to focus on one issue, and that is ethical breeding. Because as much as we encourage anyone looking to bring a pet into the family to consider adoption first, we recognize that that's not going to be the choice everyone is going to make, but there is a big difference between ethical hobby breeding and the large commercial facilities that ship animals across the country to be resold in pet stores. Pet stores rely on commercial breeding mills to supply their inventory because ethical breeders won't sell to pet stores. And that's for two simple reasons. It's not financially viable, and they don't sell to third parties. They want to know where those pets are going. They want to meet the people who are going to care for that animal. They're not doing it solely for profit. And that's why the pledge to never sell a puppy or kitten to a pet store can be found verbatim in every reputable breeder's code of ethics, including virtually all of the breed clubs promoted by the American Kennel Club and U.S. Cat Fancier associations. Although the commercial breeders that do supply pet stores may be regulated by the USDA, the federal care standards do not ensure quality breeding or a humane life for animals. And as Justine said, for example, dogs are allowed to be confined to tiny wire cages that legally only need to be 6 inches larger than the dogs themselves, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for their entire lives, forced to breed every cycle in order to produce as many puppies as possible. This substandard breeding that occurs in these mostly out-of-state facilities that Fayetteville has no way of regulating or inspecting means that unsuspecting buyers are often faced with a pet having physical, genetic, and psychological problems that can cause them to be surrendered to shelters when the emotional toll and the vet bills become insurmountable. So this is not just about protecting animals, it's about protecting consumers. Yet this ordinance would not prevent pet stores from doing business if they utilize a humane, business-friendly model that generates profit through sales of supplies and services, as thousands of successful pet stores across the country are currently doing, and ideally partnering with shelters and rescue groups to offer homeless pets for adoption. It would not impact ethical breeders who could continue to sell directly to the public. And of course, it wouldn't prevent anyone from adopting an animal from a shelter or rescue group. This would be a fair and effective way to prevent an endless supply of poorly bred pets from being imported into the community so that fewer animals will have to suffer in order to supply the retail pet trade, and to relieve the burden on your own shelter and therefore the taxpayers who subsidize shelters by getting companion animals out of those facilities and into retail settings where they have a greater chance of being adopted by the public. That's why more than 440 cities, counties, and states have enacted humane pet sales legislation like this, and Best Friends Animal Society and so many of your constituents hope that Fayetteville will become the first city in Arkansas to take this important step to protect pets, consumers, and taxpayers. We are very invested in the pets and people of Northwest Arkansas, and we really appreciate your consideration of this issue and for all the time that you put into it and for giving me the opportunity to share our support with you. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Who else do you have?
No one else on Zoom at the moment.
Okay, who would like to address this in the chamber? Well, everybody just start coming up to the podium.
Hello, Mayor and Council folk. My name is Jen Boyer, and I'm the chair of the Animal Services Advisory Committee. And like we've said before, we've talked about this for years. This is very important to our community and very important to the animals of our community. So they brought up a lot of great points before me, so I don't want to reiterate those, but I want to make some more points. And so I'm going to walk through kind of the life cycle of one of these animals for you. They are born at what they are deemed as USDA licensed facilities. USDA licensed facilities are what chickens and hogs and animals of that nature that are bred for food live in. So the USDA, works very hard to make sure that those kinds of animals have what they need, and the puppy mills kind of run by the wayside. These retail locations buy animals from those puppy mills, or worse, they use brokers. So there's no way to even track where these puppies came from. They could have had to travel across the United States to get to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Then, once they arrive at these retail facilities, they are kept in small cages. They are not walked. Their only interaction is when they are put into the hands of unsuspecting people so that they elicit an emotional reaction so that those unsuspecting people can spend thousands of dollars. We're talking $7,000, $10,000 for a puppy. They may have not walked into that store wanting a puppy. They wanted a leash or a new dog toy for the dogs they already own. But the retail service folks use terrible tactics to sell these puppies at outrageous prices. So the puppy is sold. Now what happens? Since this puppy started its life in such a terrible condition and didn't get much better when it got to the store, the owner now has to take on potentially thousands of dollars in vet bills. We are experiencing a veterinarian shortage right now, and that would tax the Fayetteville and Northwest Arkansas community of veterinarians to handle all of these new puppies that grow up to have terrible conditions, conditions that cost thousands of dollars to fix or can't be fixed at all. These dogs and cats could live an entire life where they suffer because they were sold in a retail location. So we've spoken a little bit about how they are thousands of dollars, and then you have to spend thousands of dollars to fix them because they weren't bred properly, they weren't cared for well. So a Fayetteville resident can now be, they could have gotten a degree at the U of A with the money they spent on this poor puppy. And it impacts their emotional well-being, their financial well-being, the well-being of their family, to see children have to go through the loss of a pet unneedlessly. So I urge you to please look at this amendment to the ordinance and pass it, because time is of the essence. There is a store wanting to move in near Mall Avenue right now. This is important. Please consider it.
Thank you. Who else would like to address us?
Hello, my name is Karen Barker. I'm with Petland Incorporated with the corporate office. I've been in the pet industry for 35 years. Kind of makes sense because my last name's Barker. I don't know if I really had any other option. I started in the pet industry as a vet tech. So I'm a certified vet tech, 15 years experience before I did a sideways move over to Petland. I've been a consultant with the corporate office for the last 15 years. I visit stores and I focus on animal husbandry. I work with the staff that takes care of the puppies while they're in our store waiting for their perfect family. They're not in cramped conditions. We have a great exercise and socialization program. Yes, our customers come in and they love and hug and squeeze and play with our puppies all day long, but our staff is the one that's ensuring that all of our puppies get one-on-one hugs and loves all day. It's documented. If you were to stop into any of the stores, you can see this documentation. It's monitored. We do our very best to make sure that these puppies get lots and lots of one-on-one time outside of being with their roommates. I personally teach a workshop. So I talk to the kennel staff about how to care for the puppies while they're in our store. We do best practices. We have procedures and protocols in place. We are always focusing on the one priority, which is the health and happiness of the puppy while it's at the store. I also have visited hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of breeders. Yes, they're all USDA licensed and inspected breeders. They're required to be in order to sell a puppy to a pet store. We all know that. All of us in the room know that in order for a breeder to sell a puppy to any pet store, they have to be licensed and regulated, or a hobby breeder. But even a hobby breeder has to be listed with the USDA in order for them to track and monitor to make sure that they're not falling under the needing of a license category. And so puppy mills, we can't get puppies from puppy mills at our stores. We just can't. They're not licensed, they're not registered, they're not visited, they're trying to fly under the radar. And so that's just not an option at any of our stores for us to get from those type of conditions. We visit our breeders. We view what type of veterinary program they have. We view what kind of exercise and socialization program. Are the dogs stimulated? Are the dogs allowed to just be dogs? Are they loved on? Are they hugged on? Do they have names? Are they cared for properly and with love and respect? Those are the breeders that we work with. The puppies, all of the same category, but we know that the puppies are going to get loved and they're going to get hugged. All of our stores have extensive warranties. Our puppies are happy and healthy and they come from great places. And if there is a problem after the puppy goes home, we're here. Petland's been in business for 50 years. We want lifetime customers. Somebody comes into our store and has an amazing experience and falls in love with a puppy and takes it home. We want that experience to be amazing. Whenever they grow up and they move out and they want to get their first puppy, we want them to come back and see us because it was so awesome. And they have the opportunity to come and have magic and find the perfect puppy for them. We know where our puppies come from. We share that information with every customer that takes a puppy home. They know. There's nothing that they're not given. A lot of our breeders are genetic testing. They all do breeder pledges. They all make the commitment to the dogs that they have at their place. So, what else? I talk a lot. I was just rambling and rambling. Please ask me some questions, anything. No?
Questions from the council? All right.
I'd rather hear from everybody
Sure,
and then we
absolutely.
can go back and if that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you for this platform here. My name is Young Kwan, and I'm a customer over at Petland. too busy working, I guess. I didn't know how to get puppies, to be honest. I said, well, if you need a detergent, you go to Walmart, or if you need a puppy, then you go to a puppy store. I'm here to tell you that this whole sweeping indictment on pet land is completely unfounded in our experience. From day one, I knew about the puppy mills. So I walked into the store and I said, the first question I asked is, I like this golden doodle. Where is this golden doodle from? I was given that information. I did my homework, and it certainly wasn't from a puppy mill. So I just feel as though that sitting here, and it wasn't 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, whatever the number was, it was nowhere near that, I can tell you right now. I mean, I wouldn't have spent that much money. I know I love my wife, it's her gift, but that's a lot of money. And we were nowhere near that. And this vet bill of thousands and thousands afterwards, we've gone in and this pet had pretty much no problems. And she has been the most important just stabilizer in our family. There was no sign of trauma with Daisy. My wife has some issues with anxiety, and she's been nothing but just a calming presence. We didn't have to, do anything special to Daisy to make sure that she was a happy pet in our house. In fact, when I first met her, I felt as though that she was in a very loving environment with multiple employees who cared deeply about the pet. And I felt as though that's an environment that I wanted to get my dog from. So this, it's hard to hear all these things that are being said about a company that I feel I've had great interaction with. And, there's no such thing as hidden fine print. I've read all the fine print, but there's nothing hidden behind it like an agenda, as some would lead you to believe. And they're certainly not mistreated and not all diseased as we talk about. And I did not see that. And I'm here as an avid supporter of having a retail shop that can sell puppies in a good condition, in a loving condition. And I guess if we're going to question USDA and what they do with them, that's a higher level discussion, I feel as though, if you're going to question whether they really do a good job with the puppy mills. I think they are in the business of, part of their responsibilities is to make sure that the puppy mills are controlled. And I feel as though that questioning whether USDA, their certification is, really not valid, I think that's going a little too far. And just another thing I wanted to say is I'd like to see some real concrete evidence of all these negative comments, the sweeping, quote unquote, negative comments that started everything. And also I just feel as though there's a little bit of discrimination if you were to say this group of hobby breeders can sell puppies, but this group over here, because you're in a retail space, and we know that you get them every single one of their puppies from Puppy Mill, I think this one is bad. I think that's completely discriminatory. I think there are certainly some breeders that you'd be surprised in their practice, in my research. And I think there'll be some pet stores, so you have to, that do not practice by good standards. So in that sense, I think you have to be individualized. You have to look at the company's past history, the company's also sort of the owner's history. A lot of things need to be delved in on instead of just sweeping indictment on every pet land and say it's a bad, bad, bad company. That's just a little bit about what I thought. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who else would like to address us?
Good evening, everyone. Well, I'm Melina Kwan. I'm said wife that gets to enjoy my golden doodle every single day, all day long. She goes everywhere with me. For a long time, I wanted a dog. I have this horrible anxiety, depression, you name it, I have it. My husband was far dead set against a dog. No, absolutely not. Well, for one of my birthdays, he was going to surprise me. And of course, he already told you he was going to go find me a dog, because I was giving him names out of the paper on Facebook.
hey, look at this one. But he didn't trust anybody. I mean, he's a surgeon. He wants to do his research. He wants to know where this dog's going to come from. He wants to know lineage. He wants verification. He wants to know. And that's what he did with the Boyles and Petland. He wanted facts. And so, you know, when he went in and he got all of this information, and we went in and we met them, and we fell in love with their family, with their facility. I encourage you, if you have never been into their facilities, pop in and look at it. You will see that these pets are taken care of. They are loved. We take our kids in all the time just so they can play with all of the puppies. And it's not a game just to pawn them off to get money from students. That's so absurd. And that's hurtful for families trying to take care of their family. There's a business, you know, to attack in that sense is just, it is a family trying to take care of their family, and they're doing it the right way. And so to take ugly comments and dictate it that way is cruel and unfair. And I'm sorry if you guys were hurt with unfortunate circumstances, but this entity is not that way. I love my dog, and they loved my dog before I did.
Thank you. Who else would like to address us?
It's kind of chicken scratch, so bear with me. My name is Emily Irvin. I just live here. I'm a former high school teacher. Right now, my biggest job is being a parent and a dog mom. I also volunteer at a rural rescue, and I provide towels and blankets that I have salvaged from places, and I deliver them to the rural rescues. I will say I'm not a rescue or die girl. That doesn't go over well with a lot of my friends, but I have 2 French bulldogs, and I love them. Again, that doesn't set well with some of my rescue friends, but I admit it, I love them. There are a lot of people that love purebred dogs. I believe there are ethical breeders. Not popular, I believe that. I have seen them. I don't want to get caught up, however, on the semantics that the largest retail pet selling chain gets caught up in. Puppy mill is an ugly word. It's an ugly word. It sounds ugly, but it is the same thing as a high volume dog breeder. They're the same. One of them doesn't sound so ugly. One sounds awful because they are. My Moz, who's a French bulldog, I wanted a puppy. They're cute. They're going to be loved no matter what. I had spoken to the woman, and I felt assured because she told me she's USDA licensed. I felt better, like, okay, it's not a puppy mill. I'm no dummy. I asked the right question. She was no dummy. Her job is to sell me this cute puppy. But it's what I want you guys to understand is when we're talking puppy mills or high volume dog breeders, it's really not so much about the puppies as it is about the grown up, the adult dogs, the breeding dogs. They don't get to leave. I believe one of y'all was speaking about the cage sizes that the USDA regulates. The regulated legal cage size is 6 inches above the dog's head and 6 inches from their tailbone forever. It is legal for those parent dogs where our cute puppies have come from, some of us, their parents stay in that cage forever. They don't have to be let out to exercise. They do not. They have to have a written plan but that is all it is. 12 dogs per cage is allowable by the USDA. Unless there is a problem, the USDA is not required to inspect these facilities even once a year. And that is true. If any of you have ever gone to a swimming hole, it's hot in Arkansas, y'all have probably been in pretty close proximity to a legal puppy mill, high volume dog breeder, whatever you want to call it. So it has been shown that this is where Petland gets their puppies from. And again, it's not about the puppies. They're gonna be loved. They're gonna be our companion animals. We love our dogs. They're our kids, all this. Their parents will never be a pet. Their parents and the puppies they produce until they're purchased will be livestock. They're not our pets. They won't be pets. They will be livestock, and that is legal. So the USDA doesn't do just a great job of regulating these places where Petland gets their animals from. I had a whole lot written down, but then I got carried away. But mostly I just want y'all to think about not the puppies, because they're probably going to be loved. It's the parents. And there is no limit for the amount of dogs these breeders are allowed to have. Mine had 150 adult dogs.
Time.
So anyway, thank y'all so much.
Who else would like to address this?
Can I hand out these folders to you guys, just some literature about us?
Yeah.
I'm gonna take these two. So in here, there are a couple things. There's two things. By the way, I'm Samantha Boyle.
Time.
This is Ryan Boyle. We are the owners of Petland. There, in our last week's minutes, there were some articles that were brought up. I just wanted to answer those articles with the case that was brought up about the inhumane actions. That case was actually dismissed. I have that case specifically in here. And I also have in here there were some things that were spoken about the controversy that happened in Rogers. The reason why nothing ever aired on that is because 4029 did an investigation on us. We let them in our store. We brought up every name, we looked up every record. The story was not substantiated. I have the whole entire dialogue here. You guys can literally see everything. We have nothing to hide. We're very transparent. But, you know, for us, I'm so thankful for Justine because nobody can do her job like her. I'm thankful to Emily because she knows what it takes to take care of the breed that she loves. We know what it takes to take care of the animals. Regardless of their USDA licensed stature, we go above and beyond that. I feel exactly like Emily. I'm just like you guys. I'm the average soccer mom that wants to make sure that these parents are able to find a home right away after they have a litter or two. A lot of the breeders that we use are families just like you that love the breed. Emily loves French Bulldogs. I have a family that has 2 French Bulldogs. That's all they breed for us. Their kids play with them every day. They sleep in their beds. Not every pet store is the same. I can only speak on behalf of Petland Fayetteville. And I know for a fact that we've never once ever bought from a puppy mill. It's just not what we do. It's just not what our standards are. You know, I actually invited Councilperson Bunch to the store in Rogers because it's open to kind of see what we had going on, to ask any questions. She's super busy. That's fine. She couldn't come. I would love for all of you to come to our store. I have nothing to hide. We want you to ask any questions that you want to ask. We can tell you where every puppy comes from, where every puppy goes. If there's ever an issue with the puppy, we take care of that family 100%. We go above and beyond state regulations when it comes to warranties. We go above and beyond state regulations when it comes to socialization of our pets. You know, we don't have a social life. I literally work at 6 a.m. every day to 9 o'clock every night, visiting breeders, having difficult conversations with them, even though they do a great job. It's not good enough for us. You know, we need to work together. The animal shelters that I have reached out to try to work with, you know, it's a yucky word, working with PetSource. But you know what? You guys can be the voice of change. We can work together to do what's best for the families, to do what's best for the animals. It's a great situation for the community. You know, all I ask is for you guys to, you know, really just come in, give us the fairness of being able to educate the council on who we are, where we come from, what we do. You know, we are a legal, ethical, first-class business. We are the standard in PetSource. I can't speak on behalf of any other PetSource except for my own. And I know I put my blood, sweat, and tears into that every day. And if there's any ounce of your body at all that thinks that we could be different, come visit me. Have a conversation with me. I'm a lot like you guys. I have the same exact feeling that you guys have. You know, we just need to work together to find a resolution because, you know, sometimes people don't want to go to an unknown place and see a pet. Sometimes, you know, it's just not that they want to go to a shelter, even though I have a rescue pug. I think they're amazing. You know, I support several rescues. I would be willing to have you come and do adoption clinics. I would be willing to support vaccination clinics. We offer a free spay and neuter with every single puppy that goes home. We offer a free vet visit because I want you guys to feel good about the animals you're taking home. We have nothing to hide. The vets don't work for us, they work for our families. You can use the vet of your choice. Did you guys have any questions for me?
Do y'all have any questions? Yes.
I have a couple of questions. So how many stores exactly do you own and operate?
So we own one in Joplin, we have one in Rogers, and then one in Fayetteville.
Okay, my second question is what would be the problem with sourcing puppies and cats from the animal shelter locally?
That's a great question. So my biggest problem with that is where they get their pets is not regulated. I would like to partner with them to help them, you know, maybe give the shelter maybe their first training with one of our partner trainers that will go to, you know, the animal's home and maybe say, hey, listen, based on my visit with this animal, we would recommend probably not going into a small child's home. Justine's been doing it long enough. I'm sure that she has a very good gauge on that. But we actually partner with trainers that will go into the family's home, that will actually work with a specific need. You know, I'm on the Children's Miracle Network board in Joplin. Well, COVID shut that down, but we've, you know, placed many pets in the home. We've paid for their training. We've had, you know, kids that literally had one flavor palette go to 5 flavor palettes just because they were able to get the support and emotional needs that they, you know, weren't getting met because they just don't have the functionality to be in society. You know, we have trained a German Shepherd to carry groceries for a local veteran. And, you know, he came back and, you know, took home a Schnauzer from us because he was just so thankful for what we did and his wife wanted a pet. I'm so sorry, go ahead. What other questions did you have?
The last question, because we're running out of time here, is what's the average cost of a puppy in your store?
So my cost or the consumer cost?
The consumer cost.
So it just depends. They range anywhere from $1,000 to, it just depends on, you know, I would say probably, what's our average price right now? $4,000.
$3,500 to $4,000.
And we do actually cover that pet, their warranties up to 5 years.
The 14-day viral warranty, a 3-year congenital warranty, and then a 5-year hereditary warranty with every puppy that goes home, as well as mandatory microchip enrollment. We do that before they even leave the store for responsible pet ownership. And then we also process the registration for each puppy when it goes home.
I have a question. So So I was just kind of pulled up your store and was looking at some of the puppies there, and they're all just really, really cute. What happens, how long do puppies typically stay in your store, and what happens to them if they don't sell?
So our commitment is 100% to that puppy. We take care of that puppy until it goes home. If it is, we have to place that puppy in a qualified home because, you know, it's getting older. That's what we do. Even if we take a loss, because it's for the betterment of the puppy. It's not for us.
Every puppy finds a home.
Every puppy
no
finds
matter
a
what,
home.
even
Yes.
if we have to give it away.
Okay, so I see, I was looking, you have corgis and you have lots of,
Designer breeds.
yeah, I was like, I don't know
Yeah,
what,
sure.
Cavapoo or something like that, which I've never even heard of, but I know what it is probably. So those are smaller dogs, you know, they're not huge dogs. But if a dog doesn't sell, you said you would give it away to get it into a good home if you had to. A qualified home.
Just give it to anybody.
But what, so you would, how long does it take if a dog doesn't sell before that happens? Or, I mean, you know, how long do dogs, the puppies, usually stay in your store before they're sold, the average
Days in
time?
house is probably around, what, 28 days probably?
A little less probably.
Average
Okay.
days in house.
Okay.
So at that point, our responsibility is 100% to the pet, to find the pet a good home. And believe it or not, we tell people no sometimes. You know, I've had customers come in and say, Mom, I want a husky. And the mom agrees to do a husky. And I have to have that conversation. I want you to understand that you live in an apartment, that a husky is not meant to live in an apartment. A husky is meant to run. And if you're going to live in an apartment, you have to be active. You need to be going on at least 3 walks a day. It is a huge commitment.
So sometimes it takes a little longer to find that qualified home.
Yes, and we will tell them, I'm sorry, but let's, you know, I'll let you play with this husky. Let's see, you know, if there's something, but why don't you let me recommend a pet for you based on what you told me? And then, so like, we probably recommend something like maybe a Pomsky, which looks a lot like a husky, but
Okay.
has a much different need than, say, you know,
Okay.
a large
Okay.
breed or a Pomeranian or something.
So do you ever end up with animals that you just cannot place and they might go to a rescue or something like that?
Never.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Who else would like to address us?
My name is Steve Clark. I live at 438 East Fairway Lane, Ward 1. I'm the president of the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce. I learned of this issue this morning. I've been aware of this company looking to locate in Fayetteville since 2021 and have tried to help them look at places that might be suitable for their needs and given some guidance and advice to what I thought might be better locations than others. I did some independent evaluation of this company, unbeknownst to them, because I'd read a little bit about them, and I'm like you, and I don't think anybody disagrees with you. You're appalled at puppy mills. They're incredibly bad in every definition of that. But I didn't find that to be the case. And this is a franchise. It's not a company. It's a franchise like Taco Bell or Wendy's. And the individual owner has a whole lot of responsibility as how that organization works. My interest in being concerned about this, and I shared it with the assistant city attorney, was some of the language. And the language speaks to issues that are legal, not issues that deal with some of the other things that have been discussed tonight. Legally, when this council decides it's going to decide what products and services people can sell, I think you potentially run afoul of the Commerce Clause of the United States of America. If it's not an illegal object or an illegal service, I can see how you can do that. But for you to say, because I don't know where it stops, and that really gives concern to our chamber and our many members. Also, what gives us concern is the language that says either unless obtained from the Fayetteville Animal Shelter or in cooperation with or another animal rescue organization. I don't know what any of that is. I don't know what the legal definition is of cooperation. I certainly don't know what the legal definition is of another rescue organization. It's something, but it isn't defined in this ordinance, and it makes it very difficult for any business that wants to operate in this city to understand what are the rules for operation, particularly when not this council, but an extension of the city through its Animal Services Board is giving advice and perhaps requirements about who they can use, and including to the language that was discussed here tonight, that we know who the good breeders are. Based on what? What are the standards? How do they apply? You've already heard from the people that are in the business, there are a lot of really bad ones. That we know. But the issue here is regulating business. I was a little concerned to learn that this business coming here in 2021 obtained a business license for the city. No questions asked. Absolutely. You're a legal, lawful business. Please come. You're welcome. This business is located at a location where they'd like to operate, went to the Planning Commission, went to the city for permits. All of those were issued. In fact, they believe they are within 1 day of getting permission with a fire marshal's visit until this came up. So it's a crisis. There's no question. It bugs all of us. It aggravates us and makes us angry to our core. But also we have a balance that we must strike. And the balance is, can lawful businesses operate in our city with lawful standards that are not nebulous or easy to misconstrue, but are very specific? And so in that instance, I really think that is an important thing for you to consider. So the emergency does exist. The emergency to act tonight does not. The emergency tonight is to get it right. And to get it right, you have to have some standards. And you get back to some other issues this council and other councils have faced. When you start deciding goods and services that can be offered in this city because you don't like the way they're offered rather than the legality of what's being offered, I think you overstep your bounds. And so I'd urge you not to act with immediacy. I would urge you to act as you are doing tonight, hearing from many voices, and let this business continue to go forward. And if this business is a bad operator in the city, I'll join you in driving them out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Who else would like to address us? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the council.
Mayor, I'd like to say one thing if I can.
You sure can.
This is not the first time the city council has considered restricting or prohibiting the sale of dogs and cats in the city. We have a specific code provision in our animal chapter that says you can't sell animals off of parking lots. We used to have a lot of that going around, and it was to do the same thing that I think the Animal Services Committee wanted to do here, is to protect the animals from being really sold just to the, or even given away to someone that might not know how to handle the animal or care for the animal. And we felt like that was just, or the city council felt like that was just the wrong thing to do, and so they prohibited that. And here, this is not, we never talk about any pet store that this might affect. We talk about some pet stores that don't do this, that sell pet supplies and live on that rather than trying to sell individual animals. But this is directed totally at trying to slow down as much as possible the mass production of puppies and kittens that we see in this country under conditions that are being produced under conditions that most of us don't think is probably the best thing to do. We're not trying to shut any business down. They can do anything except selling puppy mill dogs and cats. And so I think that we're not trying to, I want to make sure that the Chamber of Commerce realize we're not really directing this at any store. We want all the stores, all the pet stores in Fayetteville to operate under the same conditions where they're not helping and facilitating the mass production of cats and dogs, sometimes called puppy mills. And we just feel like, or this is at least directed toward trying to prevent that, and rather than any other business that might be coming in. So I just want to say we've already made efforts years ago to prevent that kind of activity on parking lots, and now it is being potentially extended to a pet store.
I have a question, and it's possibly for kind of a combination of the city attorney and Justine Lentz. In crafting this change to our ordinance, where did you find, I mean, I know we know that PetSmart and Petco do not sell animals, puppies and kittens that are, you know, they only take them from shelters and rescues and that sort of thing. But where are other cities that have ordinances similar to this? Because I know we mentioned a few when we first started talking about this, but I'm kind of wondering where are some other places that might have an ordinance like this. And do those cities feel that they are not promoting business by not allowing a store to sell purebred dogs? I don't think we're unique in this and alone out on an island on this issue here.
Yeah, so when we were doing our research and we reached out to Best Friends Animal Society, they gave us some information. So there are 26 other states that have enacted very similar retail pet store bans in over 350 cities. No one has ever filed a suit in a community for passing such an ordinance didn't displace any currently open businesses. And further, only a handful of suits had been filed in communities that already had retail pet stores, and none of those had been successful. So it's definitely, I mean, yes, we'd be the first in Arkansas, but we're certainly not the first in the country.
Thank you very much.
I have a question for the owners. If you could come back up here. So Mr. Clark mentioned that you all were a franchise. Is that right? So the rules that govern Petland, your franchise, do they prohibit you from taking dogs or cats or kittens or puppies from an animal shelter? Is that a prohibition within the contract with Petland?
No, it is not.
Okay. So for your 3 stores or you could change that practice if you desired to.
We would have to change our class. It's not our business model. And for the cross-contamination of the puppies, I just would feel like it would, I mean, you could ask Justine, it's the cross, when you intake a pet not knowing where it came from, the quarantine process that has to happen is pretty intense because, you know, you just like a human, we can harbor something viral for 14 days. That's why the state's, you know, regulation on warranties is 10 days, but we actually go above and beyond that to do 14 days because really that is the ethical thing to do for the consumer. And so, you know, it's just, if you quarantined every intake puppy to bring that in, basically, I just feel like there is a way that we could work with Justine and the local shelters to better each other.
Sure.
It could be a new business model. I will tell you, ASPCA is opening up talks with, you know, major retailers to change that business model because things are different now. People understand that these animals are their family members. They are not just a cow sitting in a field, which, you know, every animal has its place, but not in my heart. The animal has a right to go to a loving home at a young age, and we care about that. We care about all of it. You know, one thing we could also help Justine with is, you know, we're open quite a bit later than those shelters. And if somebody has an emergency or somebody needs to intake, you know, we could have a designated spot maybe where we could, you know, take something in or help her, you know, in a designated area. I do have a separate room, but, you know, it couldn't be on a permanent basis. They would have to come get it on that following Monday. But there's so many options that we could do to help each other. I could, you know, help them with we have such strict protocols and everything that we could learn from her and she could learn from us.
Have you all had conversations like that yet?
So I have reached out and I actually have it on video. I have to find it. Sorry, we just learned about this literally today.
Yeah.
I have not had much opportunity to prepare, but I have actually recorded myself calling local shelters to try to partner with them to sponsor vaccinations. I've actually reached out to local vets to say, hey, can we do a spay and neuter clinic? Can we educate these people? And to be honest with you, the vets do not have the time to do it, even if I pay them to do it. There's just not enough hours in the day to take care of the animals the way that they need to be taken care of. And, you know, that's why I'm telling you, we are different. There's so much more that can be done.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to ask that we table this so that way we can get a chance to prepare and have you come visit. Thank you so much.
I have a question here for Samantha.
Yes.
You mentioned quarantining puppies if they came from a shelter, but do you quarantine the puppies that you get?
That's a great question.
When they come in,
So we know exactly where that puppy came from.
Uh-huh.
I can see exactly that puppy's vaccination record. We have a very strict protocol on deworming, on all of our prophylactic care. We even do a bordetella, which is kind of like a flu shot for humans. Puppies can get the same thing. And it's just to help give them that extra boost of immunity, because if you think about a puppy, you know, they basically work on mom's immunity for the first 16 weeks. So although we do give them their vaccinations, that's just such a strong component in how they're going to respond to the external, you know, whatever they're exposed to. But at the end of the day, I can see that. So what we do is once we take them in, we do a 5-day deworming. And so basically what we do is we monitor their weight, we monitor their food, we monitor their water. We make sure that they, we just do everything that we need to do. We deworm them. If you guys came to the store, I could show you everything that we do. When we take a puppy, I can show you. We also take them to the vet, which we don't have to do that, but we do that because what we need to do is if they have any issues, so say they have weak knees or an open fontanel, or there's so much that we can tell, whether a breeder wants to hide it or not, the puppy's health speaks for itself. And we can tell by paying that vet to go down a list to say, hey, is this puppy healthy? Are we social? Are we, you know, there's just so much that you just have to run transparent business when you deal with a herd management situation and immune systems. There's just no way around it.
And I really appreciate your transparency on this, but you go through this process, but you don't actually quarantine the puppies for 2 weeks or anything like that.
So we have to hold them for 48 days, but I can see that they've had their vaccination.
72 hours.
So 72
hours before they're offered for
48 hours.
Yeah. And in that time, we're seeing the veterinarian, we're going through the treatments that Samantha, talked about.
Okay.
So there is a quarantine process.
Yeah. Because we can see that they've had the care that they need before they come in.
Because we require it by the breeders.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all right now.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, I would like to ask Justine if she could come up, if you guys would just, I don't have any other questions for you right now. So Justine, when the animal shelter gets a dog, what's the process that they go through with before that dog is available to?
Right. So we are obviously we have city ordinances to follow. So any dog that we take in, or cat for that matter, unless they're coming directly from an owner who can no longer care for them, they are held either 5 to 7 days, depending on if they're microchipped or not. Regardless of that, unless we have current vaccine records, we immediately give them, for dogs, a parvo distemper booster, bordetella, which is kennel cough, a dewormer, and we weigh them as well, treat them with a topical flea and tick preventative. After they become our property, then we also heartworm test dogs that are over 6 months. They get spayed or neutered. They get their rabies vaccination if they're old enough. We actually have an extremely strict protocol with puppies because they are extremely vulnerable. Same thing with kittens. So we actually have one dedicated staff member that's in charge of puppies. That person's not allowed to interact with any adult dogs. We don't allow the public to come in and play with our puppies because we don't know where they've been. Parvo is a virus that puppies can get that is oftentimes fatal to them. If it's not fatal, it's pretty brutal to get them through it. We do treat puppies with parvo at our animal shelter on the regular, so we have a pretty good protocol for treating it, but to be extra safe, we don't allow people to handle our puppies until they either leave the facility or until they have 3 parvo distemper boosters on board. Parvo is a very hardy virus. You can track it on your shoes, you can walk through it, you just don't know until it's too late. Once they start showing symptoms, because a lot of times you can't test for it ahead of time. You can't test until they're showing symptoms. So I think that answers your question.
So that's a pretty lengthy process there as well. But before that puppy or young dog is available to be adopted, about how many days does that take, you know, to?
I would say at a minimum, obviously 5 days.
Mhm.
Usually it probably averages more in the 7 to 10 range. Actually would never turn around and adopt out a puppy that I had less than 72 hours because, I mean, anything can pop up, whether it's, you know, worms that maybe didn't get eliminated the first round. You know, parvo does have a longer incubation period too. So, I mean, that's always a possibility that that's not going to break until later. So we try to be as cautious as we can.
The last time I was in the shelter, and this has been quite a while back, I know there was some procedure where you know, of course, everybody wants to play with the puppies, you know, because they're so cute. But I believe I was looking at a kitten or something like that, and I had to walk through some kind of substance to clean my shoes off. And then I could only, if I wanted to, I couldn't just take one kitten out and put it back and get another one. I had to wash my hands and be really careful that way.
Yeah, and our staff veterinarian, Dr. Henley, I mean, she has protocols for everything. And then, of course, we train our volunteers as well. Because anytime you're dealing with like a herd, right, like a large population of animals, you just have to be extra safe to keep everybody healthy as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council? Or I've already done that, haven't I? No, you get one turn tonight. I'm going to bring it back to the council. So what do y'all want to do?
I'm wondering if there's a way that more time can be allowed. Sounds like we're 1 day away from certification or for this business.
Fire marshal.
With the fire marshal. So I'm wondering if that could be held up for a couple of weeks to allow maybe Justine and the owners of Petland to maybe discuss if there is any room to cooperate or collaborate. Just any room for that. So I don't know what other council members feel or if that's even an option.
I feel like this can't be about Petland. It needs to be about, is this something we want for all or not? And that's what the decision needs to be about. Unfortunately, it seems like some people think it's about Petland. It needs to be, do we want this type of business specifically prohibited there or not? So I really worry. So hopefully it's something that we do independent of whatever Petland's doing.
Yeah, I think that we have to look at this as a situation that is broad. I know I was very involved with the Humane Society for several years, and I was president of the board here for several years. And I guess it's a supply and demand thing. If there was no demand for puppies from a high volume breeder, then there wouldn't be high volume breeders. And the demand, if you look at the statistics, is pet stores. This pet store sounds incredible, and I commend the owners for running a good business. But we can't always know that that's what's happening. We have had a pet store here. It was out by the bowling alley. I don't know if y'all remember it. That was pretty, you know, when they did the investigation on it, it was unfortunate. And so that was a situation that, you know, was quite opposite of what we have here. So you have to think of the possibilities, I guess, or at least that's what I think. Also, my bookkeeper in the accounting division I'm in, she is a dog breeder for registered dogs. I can't remember what they are. But she doesn't have any problem selling them because they're registered and they're show dogs, and people come to her, and that's her, you know, her responsibility to the dogs that she breeds. I commend this couple. I think that they have a great model, but I don't think that we can look at just one and think that that's okay, just based on statistics of, and I don't like the word puppy mill so much as high volume breeders, because that's more of what they are. It's more like livestock or poultry, but it's puppies. So anyway, I think you know where I stand, and I think that that's how I would have to look at it.
I think that, I think Mark's hit on some really good points there, and so did Sloan about, you know, it just so happens that Petland is wanting to open in Fayetteville. And that's why we're talking about Petland. It's really not that different than we talk about a rezoning, and when someone says, well, I want to build a house or I want to build two houses, and we don't really know that for sure, but I think probably this company, you know, franchise, they have certain standards they have to meet and all of that, but I have grave concerns. I would not have co-sponsored this bill or this ordinance if I had not had these concerns. And when I know that there are 350 other cities that have a similar ordinance, or there are 26 other states that where there's 350 cities that have retail bans, I think that's an important thing to consider. And when we look at the industry, the biggest companies that I know, you know, Petco and PetSmart do not sell purebred animals. They partner with rescues and shelters and that sort of thing. I think that's something I have to consider also. I looked at the Petland in Rogers, and they sure do have some cute puppies up there. They are just cute little fuzzy things, and I know, you know, I can understand the temptation to want to buy one of them, but I also feel that we can, you know, maybe I want to take Petland out of the equation altogether. But I just don't know that we need to be promoting that in our city. And we do have a lot of animals that are rescues or in you know, the shelters that need adoption. And it's not, you know, we're not preventing anyone from going out and buying a purebred dog. My sister and brother-in-law bought a corgi puppy, and they went to Missouri so they could get a purebred dog, you know. So I have had purebred dogs before, But I don't have one now. I have one that came from the shelter, and she's a pretty good dog too. So I kind of, and I have actually known people that were high volume breeders, that was kind of part of their farm model. They, and I don't really think it was the best situation, honestly. So, I'll just close with that and wait to hear what the rest of you guys have to say.
And so,
I guess I have a comment. I mean, I think when a lot of the emails that I received, it was about being sure that the animals were being humanely treated, and so if there's a way to track how the animals come through, where they're coming from, whether they're sold at Petland or something like that, is that something that we're open to, or we're just saying it's just easier? We really don't have the resources to go and inspect and track that, and that's what we're concerned about, right? So how do I guess for people that are wanting us to protect animals, the answer is to reduce the number of places where the hands are exchanged, and I think that's what's happening. That's the question that the people of Fayetteville are asking us. Like, you're our city council. How can you help us protect our animals? And y'all are doing, it sounds like, an incredible job. And we also have constituents saying, we've unfortunately had these stories. And so we're having these dilemmas because, we absolutely want business. Your business sounds really good. You're the exception. You're the exception. And so how do we balance that? We want people to be able to get the amazing dogs they have, and you've had a great experience. And that's anxiety is something everybody's probably experiencing right now. Maybe a Labradoodle's the answer from Petland. I don't know. But we really don't have any way to track that, I guess, is the issue. So I don't know if this ordinance can include a tracking, if we just said, hey, for every animal that's sold in Fayetteville, is there a way to track the animals?
I don't know.
Unless the council brings you up.
I don't know about that, but I do think that I always try to take everything with a grain of salt. And, you hear horror stories, and they're designed to be horrible stories. They're to really make a point. So I kind of pull back from the worst case scenario and think maybe it's not quite as bad as that. But I don't know what we can do about that. I don't think there's any way we can. So,
I would love to table this and look at it at another point. I agree with you that we need a mechanism. I know it's at the state level, but think about alcohol. We allow entities to sell alcohol, but if they do it wrong, the state goes, you don't get to sell alcohol anymore. So we need to look at this a little bit more and come up with something that, so if they do it fine, then they get to keep doing it. And if somebody else comes in with some derivation of the name pet and they're not doing it right, that we can say, hey, we know you're not doing it right. You're going to have to fix and temporarily lose that right, just like alcohol places. If they keep selling it to minors, they don't get to sell it to anybody for a while. And if they keep doing that, then they either never get to sell it or get to go to jail. So I think we need to review this and write something that works independent of their name and more what they're actually doing on the ground. So
I have a comment. In the past, when we've looked at this, and I was on the committee before Sarah was, and like I say, I've been active in the shelter. I moved back here in '91, and that's when I got on the board of the local Humane Society, which at that time ran the shelter. The problem is we don't have an agency, and we cannot afford an agency to go out and be the police in this in this realm of enforcement, I think, you know, if there were we know about what we have, but really there is not tight restrictions that are enforcing this through an agency. So that's a concern.
I have something I'd like to add. For me, I came into this issue not knowing about any business in particular. I came to Kit and Justine concerned about outdoor shelter. So for me, this is not to do with any business, not to do with anybody in particular. This was just care of animals. And I would like to take, anybody out of the equation. I just want us to look at the ordinance for what it is, which is, protecting the health and safety of animals. So I would like to bring forward a motion to move to the second reading.
Second.
I have a motion second to go to the second reading. Karen, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
An ordinance to amend section 9204, sale of diseased animals, kennel and pet shop regulation to prohibit the retail sale of dogs, cats, puppies, and kittens unless obtained from and in cooperation with the Fayetteville Animal Shelter or other animal rescue organization, and to declare an emergency.
I'd like to suspend the rules and go to the third and final reading.
Second.
A motion second to go to third and final reading. Karen, would you please?
Mayor, I have a comment. Can we just, before we do the reading, can we, or the voting, can I just comment that, here, I think we need more information. I am so sorry that we are under the gun with 1 day to go, but I'm feeling like this is being really rushed. I guess you guys know that I like to do a lot of research. I feel like this issue is way more complex than I realized. And so, I'll support moving this a little bit forward, but I would really like to not make the final vote tonight if there is any way for us to delay the fire department from certifying this business or whatever the right term is. So I will just put that out there.
I'm okay to hold it as well. I mean, is that what you're saying?
I have a comment on that.
I would like to hear Kit's comments on what was just said, and I don't know that we can even do that. I don't think
You
that's.
can with withdrawing your motions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I suppose.
you could do that in that, if you're voting on it tonight and you're making a decision tonight.
Right.
If you suspend the rules, go to third reading, it's ready to be voted on, it could be tabled then, but I don't understand how that would be different. And actually, I think we have other council members that want to talk on this, so that's all I want to say.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but from my point of view, I do know a lot about this, and I do have a lot of compassion. And so I would go ahead and vote, and you all have to do whatever you want to do. But I think this is something that is valuable for my values. So just wanted to let that be known.
I don't know how long it's been since that particular pet store was in existence. I mean, we've had two big stores, Petland and Petco, in Fayetteville for many years, but they have not sold animals like the store that Mark was describing. But I do know that I was in there before, and this was years ago, but it was a grim place. It was pretty suspicious there on that, the animals that they had and everything. And that's kind of, that's in the back of my mind, that if we table this, if we try to work around this one particular business, we open ourselves up to other businesses that are not as qualified as Petland probably is. And that's a concern to me because we have had that in Fayetteville before. And, you know, and these pet stores, they sell puppies because puppies are irresistible. And I've often thought if we just had puppies in the front here, we could deflect a lot of animosity that we sometimes face. We just have a little bowl of puppies out here with everybody would calm down a lot, you know. But you know, they sell puppies and they're not really you know, they're relying on those being cute animals and being irresistible to a lot of kids and other people. I mean, I know I've been in a store before and I almost walked out with a bloodhound puppy. Of all who in the hell would buy a bloodhound puppy and live in a little house in town? I don't know, but it was awfully cute and it just bonded with me. It just did.
I have another comment. I think that it sounds like that we're forcing people to go to or to have a pet that comes from a shelter as a rescue. I think that Emily said it from her point of view. She likes her French bulldogs, and she got French bulldogs, but she still understands the demand for animals from high volume animal breeders. And so I think that's a very valuable point of view because I know her dogs and they are cute and they're purebred, but she's still out there trying to do the right thing and reduce the demand. It's the demand for high volume animal breeders that is in the industry. So anyway, thank you, Emily, for your point of view. I think that was valid.
Mr. Mayor, I won't even let Mrs. Whitaker walk into a pet store because I can't handle the competition if she were to bring something home. And I have not researched this. I am not overly competent on the issue of pets at this point in my life. I do know the code, however, and I do know that this body does not have the ability to impact an inspection from a department, whether it's the building department or the fire department. They're acting on a ministerial permit under state law that says if you meet the requirements, you get your permit, you get your inspections, and the outcome of that is determined by the code. And so I would not like us to be distracted with talk about an inspection because that's irrelevant for our body. I appreciated Sloan and Teresa expressing concern that they wish we had a little more time to research this. And that is my sentiment, not being overly qualified in this. I do think, however, that the council has spoken with some significant wisdom saying that the issue isn't the sale of animals, the issue isn't the puppies, the issue is the breed animals themselves. And that's beyond our ability to regulate. I have eminent respect for the Chamber of Commerce. But at the same time, we regulate the sale of alcohol, a legal product, on Sundays in Washington County. And I wish we could change that, Mr. Mayor, but that's beyond this council's purview as well.
We've looked into that.
And so I'm at this quandary of saying, while I don't want to get distracted that there's an inspection, that's not our purview. I don't want to get distracted with the sale of puppies. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the care and condition of the breed animals and whether we have an ability to impact that. The business entity has the ability to sell more mature animals, such as you and I are, Mayor, or they have the ability to refer people to Springdale, to their other facility to say, I've got just the animal you're looking for. You didn't find what we had available through our local immediate access. And so I don't think that we're curtailing their ability to be a profitable business either. So I had no idea that this would unfold the way that it did. I thought it was a relatively straightforward item. And Mr. Mayor, it simply proves that I was a foolish man to believe that when I woke up this morning.
Well, here's what we got. I've got a motion and a second. And we're going to have to take some sort of action or not. And if you, yes.
I would say, Holly and she made the motion, I seconded it. I would say, let's go ahead and vote. And if council members are not in agreement with what we have as an ordinance, they don't have to support it. And, I'm ready to vote on it.
Well, first, you're going to have to get to the third reading.
Right, that's what you're talking about, the motion to suspend the rules to go to the third and final reading.
Okay. Carol, let's call the roll here.
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
No.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
No.
What's that give us?
Okay, so that did pass, and let me do the third reading. An ordinance to amend section 92.04, sale of diseased animals, kennel and pet shop regulation, to prohibit the retail sale of dogs, cats, puppies, and kittens unless obtained from and in cooperation with the Fayetteville Animal Shelter or another animal rescue organization, and to declare an emergency.
Okay, what final comments do we have in the council?
I think the emergency part makes it feel like that it personalizes it to the business as opposed to the topic in general. And that would just be the only other comment that I would have to make. I like the general approach to it beyond that.
Well, the emergency clause will not be voted on first, only the ordinance itself, and then there will be a second vote on the emergency clause.
Yeah. Okay, so any other final comments from the council?
Well, I do like your point of view there, so I get it.
I just want to say that I just feel this issue is so complex and it's being really rushed. And I wish I had a little bit more time to do some research. So that's my point of view.
See, that's why I always ask for comments and action, and as I explain later. Because, that I don't want to rush anyway. But I think for what it's worth, we have done these before. Kid brings out a really good point. I was on the council when we did the sidewalk, no sale on sidewalks. I agree with you, Mark. There was been some pet stores in this town. I'm not saying that this pet store is like that, but I have seen some pretty rough pet stores. Now, I think Mark brings out a really good point. This, if I had to, would vote for this because it is part of my values as well. And I have a dog that I have gotten at the animal shelter, and I've become in fact, I've gotten two. And, but animals are like family to me. So it's just part of my grain, and I believe that this type of ordinance needs to be passed, not because of this business, but because it's the right thing to do. So with that, I will leave it up to you. Carol, let's call the vote here.
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Scroggin,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
Yes.
Okay, now there needs to be a separate vote on the emergency clause. So there should be a motion and a second to
I
pass
move.
the emergency clause.
I move to approve the emergency clause.
I'll second
Second.
I have a motion and a second to pass the emergency clause. I think we've said everything there needs to be said. Karen, would you please call the roll?
Hertzberg,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kenyon. Whitaker,
No.
Scroggin,
No.
Bunch,
Yes.
Turk.
No.
The emergency clause fails.
Okay. So that puts it on board for 30 days, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, that concludes our business. Any announcements? No announcements? All right. Thank you all very much.